Morning, everyone. This is the May 21st, 2025 meeting of the Albany Regional Board of Review. This hearing is being held via video conference call, WebEx, at the following location: New York State Department of State, 1 Commerce Plaza, room 505, Albany, New York, 12231. The time is now 9:05 and the hearing is officially open. The members of the board are Laura Ryder, Jackie Coons, Jared Behringer, and attending remotely is Chuck Hinderleiter. My name is Andy Ellis, Chairman. From the Department of State is Joe Fakar Ali, Tom Datula. We'll now hear the scheduled petitions. When you speak, please address the board and give your name, title, and legal address so the court reporter can have all the information requested. We may have to stop from time to time to consult with our technical staff. In making comments to the board, please provide a descriptive narrative on the matters referring to your exhibits to enable a court reporter to enter these into the record. We have 4 petitions today, and our first petition pertains to petition number 2024-0532. This hearing is in the matter of Peter Mitchell. And nature of the grievance and relief sought. The petition pertains to an existing building containing multiple resident apartment buildings in R2 occupancy, 3 stories in height, of type 5B wood frame unprotected construction, located at 609 McClellan Ave or McClellan Street, City of Schenectady, County of Schenectady, State of New York. The relief is requested from Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Resident Law, Article 3, Section 30, cellar ceilings, which states that in every such dwelling, 3 stories or more in height, the ceiling of the cellar or the lowest story, if there be no cellar, shall be fire retardant or equipped with a sprinkler system, unless such ceiling has already been plastered to the satisfaction of the department. And Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 3, Section 31, inside cellar stairs, every stair leading from the cellar to the floor above, and all old multiple dwellings shall be enclosed with fire retardant partitions and shall be equipped with a fire retardant self-closing door located at the department, or located as the department may approve. The petition requests relief from the requirement that a fire rated ceiling or sprinkler system be provided in the cellar of the dwelling, 2 existing exit stairs from the basement, to which are not enclosed in a rated assembly but have self-closing rated doors. So we have our petitioner online, Mr. Mitchell. Please state your name and legal address. And
my name is Peter Mitchell. I live at 655 Brunswick Road, Troy, New York.
And can you tell us a little bit about the building? And we do have some of your case here, but can you give us a basic description of the building itself and how many units are on each floor?
Yeah, I'm Peter's brother, Philip. I helped prepare the documents that I hope you all have. So the building, I guess, if you want general descriptions, there's a general picture of the building on the page 1 of a section titled General and Existing Safety Items Installed. It's a nice old house that's got 2 units on the first floor, 2 units on the second floor, and an attic that's converted to a 3rd unit. You can see that it has fire escapes everywhere, and the utility room is all fire code sheetrock and masonry surrounded. I don't know, what other pictures do we have here? Those sort of things. Has the door closers. Peter does his best to keep it up to the existing code, but the new codes, the house was built 100 years ago, and updating to the new codes is problematic. So we're hoping that an interconnected wireless interconnected smoke detectors would provide in addition to all the other safety measures that are already at the house, would provide an adequate level of protection for the inhabitants.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open it up to the board for questions. The petitioner?
This is Jared from the board. How many apartments are in this?
There are 5 units.
Okay. And then I see that in some of the pictures, there's closures. Are those closures to the basement doors, they're automatic closures, or to the apartments as well?
There's one on each apartment and a closer for the basement door as well, yes. There's just one door at the top of the basement stairs.
Okay. And that's the only door that's in and out of the basement?
No, there's a Bilco door, or,
Okay.
Not to the outside.
To the outside.
Yep.
Yeah.
And is there storage for the tenants in the basement?
There was currently there's only one tenant, and it's been cleared out in anticipation of selling the house.
Just to let you know, usually as one of our conditions, we would require that there be no tenant storage in the basement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My brother David's writing that down.
Yeah.
So,
And the system, the fire detection system that is put in, they're interconnected but wireless?
there's a quotation for the system as the last page of the Exhibit A application for variance. Let me review what it says. Installation: provide and install wireless interconnected smokes in all apartments, hallways, and basement. And included in the quotation is inspection, annual fire alarm inspection, clean and test. We'll send inspections to Schenectady Fire Compliance. We chose Taylor Tech installers for this because, we have good experience with them with the security system. This building was, had tenants in it that needed to be evicted and left behind lots of damage and needles and things. And then even after they were evicted, there were break-ins on 2 occasions where people went through all the units. So we got security system installed, and it seems to be working, and no break-ins since. boarded up some of the windows and things like that. So we're hoping to turn the place around and get it to a new owner that will upgrade everything.
This is Andy from the board. The picture of the stairs that go down leading into the basement with the landing, I assume there is a door at the top of those stairs in
Oh,
the
yes.
hallway?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's what is pictured in page.
I think you got cut off there somehow.
Yeah, no, I was looking for, did you send us a picture of the door? Oh, yeah,
There.
with the self-closer on it?
There's two door pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, if that's not the exact door, it's typical.
Okay.
It probably is the exact door. It's been a couple months since we made this application.
Okay.
Peter, what do you see?
I'm trying to find it.
Oh,
You know. That's the,
yeah, that's the basement.
Downstairs.
Yeah.
So I think it's this one's upstairs.
that doesn't look like it.
This is Jeff Hinderleiter. I was wondering, what's the condition of the fire escapes? Have they been inspected recently? Are they in working order?
Yeah, both of those. They've been inspected recently, and some minor issues were found and corrected. And inspected again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think they asked specifically about the one for the basement door.
Oh, okay, so this is a typical one that you have a picture of.
Yeah, I thought I had all of them.
Yeah.
Here's one.
That's the boiler room.
So there's
All right.
There were 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions from the board?
Just want to make sure about the storage, but if we're just gonna not allow it.
Say it again.
You had a question
Yeah.
about storage?
No, typically, we would ask the petitioner to not have any storage in the basement or if that's something
They're
that,
selling it. Right, they're selling the building, so they have to relay that condition to the next person, which will be fine.
In previous cases, we had required signage for some occupants
That's kind of what I
in the
was saying.
basement. So I would be in support of requiring some sort of signage going in the basement as part of the variance, so that on the basement door or in the basement to show that, make it clear that no storage or laundry is permitted in the basement.
Oh, no laundry either? There's a washer and dryer in this
No,
basement
there's
now. Oh, there isn't? That stopped working?
No, that's not there anymore.
Oh, sorry, the washer and dryer's been removed.
any other questions from the board? Do we have code enforcement official from the city of Saratoga? Has any questions or, sorry, Schenectady?
She's actually trying to get on.
Okay, okay.
I don't know if you want to take it. She sent me an email.
Okay.
I can give her a call if you like.
Sure. Especially things that they're reaching out to us.
Steps.
I think we have a questionnaire from the, do we? Please bear with us while we're waiting for calls from the city of Schenectady. This would be one of those technical issues I was talking about.
Do they have a phone number for her?
Imagine.
Application at the bottom. What is-
Well, they must be, I think. And they must be in contact with her. She's-
Yeah, the notes Barbara for the part of the state, I sent you the link on me, actually, you guys are, we go to deliberation or we go to.
No luck.
Yeah, we can. What's that?
We're not gonna wait for her. Let's deliberate. Does she just want to say in her email? I assume she's in support, right, Barbara? Or what did she say in her email? Just that she can't get in, or that she's trying to get in to speak in support?
She was trying to get online for the web access, she said she could, she just said, I resent her the link and when she. Do you guys want to deliberate the case, like we keep trying to get her?
Just ask her if she's got any conditions that she wants.
Try calling, all right.
I did try
Maybe
calling.
email in the email.
Do we want to at least get our
Started.
verbiage
We could agree.
and then wait for her to come back and ask her questions? Are we allowed to do that? So.
I can't get a book.
All right, we'll just go into deliberation.
Yeah. At this time, the board is going to go into deliberation while we wait for the building code official to call in. And we'll be back in a little bit. We'll go off.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. On the application of Peter Mitchell, 655 Page Brunswick Road, Troy, New York, and upon taking testimony and hearing argument thereon at a duly noted hearing before the Capital Region Albany Board of Review held via video conference call WebEx at One Commerce Plaza, 99 Washington Avenue, 5th floor, conference room, Suite 505, Albany, New York, 12231 on May 21st, 2025. And upon hearing all papers in this matter, the board makes the following determination. The nature of the grievance and relief sought. The petition pertains to an existing building containing a multiple residence apartment building, a R2 occupancy, 3 stories in height, of type 5B wood framed unprotected construction located at 609 McClellan Street, City of Schenectady, County of Schenectady, State of New York. Relief is requested from Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 3, Section 30, cellar ceilings, which states that in every such dwelling, 3 stories or more in height, the ceiling of the cellar or the lowest story, if there be no cellar, shall be fire retarded or be equipped with a sprinkler system unless such ceiling has already been plastered to the satisfaction of the department. Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 3, Section 31, inside cellar stairs, every stair leading from the cellar to the floor above, and all old multiple dwellings shall be enclosed with fire retarded partitions and shall be equipped with a fire retarded self-closing door indicated that as the department may approve. Petition requests relief from the requirement that a fire retarded ceiling or sprinkler system be approved, provided in the cellar of the dwelling, and allow the 2 existing exit stairs from the basement to which are not enclosed in a rated assembly, but have self-closing rated doors. Finding of the facts, number 1, the building that is subject to this petition is properly classified under 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 1, Section 433, as a multiple dwelling. Number 2, the subject building is approximately 3,032 square feet in gross area, was originally constructed around 1935, and contains 5 dwelling units, having 2 dwelling units on the first floor, 2 on the second floor, and 1 in the occupied attic. This subject building, number 3, the subject building is required to conform with the provisions of Article 3 of the Multiple Residence Law as provided in Section 25, in that existed on July 1st, 1952, or was converted to a multiple dwelling after July 1st, 1952, and is not a hotel or similar dwelling subject to Article 4 of the Multiple Residence Law. Number 4, Article 3, Section 30 of the Multiple Residence Law requires in every such dwelling 3 stories or more in height, the cellar, the ceiling, or the lowest story, if there be no cellar, shall be fire retarded or be equipped with a sprinkler system unless such ceiling has already been plastered to the satisfaction of the department. Number 5, the lowest story cellar ceiling of this multiple family dwelling is not enclosed with fire retardant material and does not contain a sprinkler system. A fire in the cellar could easily spread throughout the building before it is noticed. There is a mechanical system, piping, and electrical wiring along the ceiling of this unoccupied cellar, which would make installing a fire retardant ceiling very difficult. Number 6, Article 3, Section 31 of the Multiple Residence Law requires that inside cellar stairs, every stair leading from the cellar to the floor above in an old multiple dwelling shall be enclosed with fire retardant partitions and shall be equipped with fire retarded self-closing door located as the department may approve. Number 7, the petitioner has indicated the door leading to the basement is to be self-closing and fire rated, but the wall of the stairs that leads to the basement is not fire rated. Petitioner states that the existing mechanical room that contains the boiler and water heaters are enclosed in the fire resistant construction on the interior walls and the ceiling. Number 9, as indicated, to compliance with Article 3, Section 30 and 31 of the Multiple Residence Law, the applicant has stated that they have installed a hardwired interconnected smoke and carbon monoxide alarm system interconnected from the basement to each individual unit in all the common areas, hallways, stairwells, and they would provide early warning in the event of fire-related emergency. Number 10, the petitioner states that they are proposing that the existing dwelling units will have a 10-year lithium battery-operated smoke and carbon monoxide detectors in all the bedrooms of the apartments. Number 11, the petitioner states that there'll be multiple egress pathways that states that there is multiple egress pathways that existed in the New York State multiple residence law requirements. Number 12, the petitioner also states that the existing doors of the apartments to conform or to common spaces will be replaced with self-closing fire-rated doors into each individual dwelling unit. Number 13, subject building has been inspected yearly and compliance certificate issued and registered with the city. Number 14, the code enforcement official for the city of Schenectady was not present during this hearing and has not indicated support or opposition for the variance. Conclusion of law, the proposed variance will not substantially adversely affect the law's provision for health, safety, and security. Strict compliance would entail practical difficulties, unnecessary hardship, otherwise be unwarranted because would be unnecessary in light of alternatives which, without a loss of level of safety, achieve the intended objective of the law. Determination. Wherefore, it is determined that the application for the variance from Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Resident Law, Article 3, Sections 30 and 31, be and hereby granted with the following conditions. Number 1, that the property owner shall hire a third-party independent code-certified inspection agency to test the alarm system annually at a minimum and shall submit the inspection results to the City of Schenectady Building Department. Inspection reports shall be left on site and be readily available for inspection. Number 2, tenant storage shall not be allowed in the unfinished basement area. Number 3, there shall be permanent signage for tenant that states no storage allowed. And number 4, the property owner shall consult with the fire marshal to confirm approval of the basement door rating. And I'll read into the record the short environmental assessment form EAF. Motion for negative declaration for short EAF for the board of review. Number 1, that the board of review find and determine that the issuance of a variance in petition number 2024-0532 will not have a significant environmental impact and will not have a significant adverse effect on any significant fish or wildlife habitat, scenic resource of statewide significance, importance agricultural land, or an area included in an approved local waterfront revitalization program. And number 2, that the Department of State be authorized to sign and deliver on behalf of the Board of Review and the Department of State, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, short, environmental assessment form indicating that no or small impact may occur in response to each question in Part 2 of the form and determining in Part 3 of the form that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impact. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. It's Laura.
Laura Ryder. May I have a second?
Chair.
Jared Bear. Now I'll poll the board members. Laura Ryder.
Aye.
Jackie Coombs.
Aye.
Jared Behringer.
Aye.
Jeffrey Hindeleiter.
Aye.
And I, Chairman Andy Ellis, vote aye. For the record, let the vote show 5 ayes, 0 nays. This decision is limited to the specific building and application before it and as contained within the petition and should not be interpreted to give implied approval of any general plans or specifications presented in support of this application. This concludes the matter before us, and this case is now closed. Chairman Andy Ellis, board members Laura Ryder, Jackie Coon, Jared Behringer, Jeffrey Hindeleiter, all concur. So ordered. Do you have any questions?
Yes. In point 9, I think you suggested that we were putting in or had already installed a hardwired interconnected smoke detector system, and that's not correct. Our intent is to provide a wireless interconnected smoke detector system as indicated in page 8 of 8 of the variance application, Exhibit A.
Interconnection, I thought you meant hardwired power. Didn't say it was battery powered.
The estimate.
That's what
It
the
says
estimate.
wire, it says talks about batteries.
10-year battery.
Right.
They're wireless connected though, interconnected.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
So I should have said hardwired or wireless interconnected.
Correct.
Yeah, that works for us.
They all had batteries though too, so I just misunderstood that. I thought they were still wired. I was gonna ask that and then I thought.
Didn't change anything, right?
Not gonna get this in writing.
I mean, just as far as like. Whatever. Doesn't change my decision.
So can we change that in our?
Yeah,
text?
I think you can change it and delete it, the number, whatever the condition.
It was
Well,
in the
that was in our-
findings.
It was on our finding of facts, not our condition.
Yeah, like just change it and delete the condition or record.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I misunderstood
Yeah.
that.
Yep. me too. So in our finding of facts, our number 9, we are going to remove, or are we going to add
Or what?
hardwired or wireless?
Well, they're not hardwired, yeah. So I should say, instead of hardwired, say battery powered.
Battery powered.
Well, no, there's still wireless interconnection, so you
Yeah.
make the wireless. So just say
Just battery
battery powered wireless interconnect.
Okay.
Can you just say interconnected and be silent on battery or versus hardwired? Just say
Yeah.
replace
Okay.
with interconnected
That's-
devices.
okay.
Yeah, finger fine.
We're gonna change our verbiage for number 9. In our finding of facts as an alternative to compliance with Article 3, Section 30 and 31 of the multiple residence law, the applicant has stated that they will install a wireless interconnected smoke and carbon monoxide detection alarm system interconnected from the basement to each unit individually in all common areas, a hallway, stairwells. And they would provide early warning in the event of a fire-related emergency.
Yeah, let the record show that we're nodding our heads, yes.
Okay. My apologies. Okay,
What happens next?
we're good. Thank you very much.
Well, and thank you. Still one last thing.
Yeah.
I guess you will provide a document at some point?
Yes, you will get a document from the Department of State in a few weeks, I assume,
Okay,
with the clarification. And
Once the decision is written
once the decision is,
and you sign it,
and I
email it.
Yeah. Once our court reporter
Email.
gets a copy of this to me, then I sign it and the state will send you a copy of it.
is there a chance we could get an email as well?
Yes.
That's how it's.
Yep, you will be getting an email.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
thanks for all your good work, keeping us all safe.
thank you. Okay, now we will go on to our next petition, number 2. Petition 2025-0116, Seabird Avenue LLC. Do we have our petitioner online?
Yes, we do, sir.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a good choice.
1 second. So this petition pertains to 2025-0116. Application for Joshua, pardon me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amito?
Amodio.
Okay. For Seaward Avenue LLC, PO Box 25, Yorkville, New York. And upon taking testimony, or I do not have the right one. This petition pertains to the cellar ceiling be protected by plaster ceiling or equipped with an automatic sprinkler system and wood wainscoting and wood trim and fire rated doors in the corridors, halls and stairwells. The subject building is a 9 dwelling unit apartment building with residential apartments on the first, second, and third floor. Dwelling unit located at 43 Main Street, Village of Yorkville, County of Oneida, State of New York.
Yes.
Relief is requested from Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 3, Section 28, stairs and entrance halls. In every such dwelling, 3 stories or more in height, of the wood wainscoting and other combustible materials on the walls and ceiling surfaces in all halls shall be removed. In lieu of such removal, and sprinkler system may be installed, or such wainscoting and the combustible surfaces may be treated or covered with a surface fire retardant approved by the department. In such a dwelling, the entrance door and every door opening into the entrance hall, stair hall, and other public hall connected therewith shall be self-closing. The petitioner requests relief to allow the wood wainscoting and the trim to remain, but allow the petitioner to treat the wood materials with a fire retardant finish or cover with 3H gypsum board sheathing. And Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 3, Section 30, cellar ceilings, which states that in every such dwelling, 3 stories or more in height, the ceiling of the cellar or the lowest story, if there be no cellar, shall be fire retarded or be equipped with a sprinkler system, unless such ceiling has already been plastered to the satisfaction of the department. The petitioner requests relief to allow the alternative of additional smoke and heat detectors that are connected to the smoke detectors and the lines located in the common areas that are to be connected to a fire panel that communicates to a third-party monitoring or 911 service.
Okay.
At this time, I ask the petitioner to state their case.
Good morning. My name is Josh. My business partner, Kevin Parker, is also on the line with us.
Good morning, all.
Morning.
We purchased this property, built circa 1850, in May of 2019. And we Not unlike anybody else who's petitioning, we were informed just last year of changes in the safety of the property, and safety is certainly a priority, not only for us, but for a lot of property owners. And I'm sure that there are additional options available to provide additional safety, which we agree with. However, based on the construction of this property, it's not going to be unlike the last petitioner, Mr. Mitchell, in the sense that being able to fire rate the basement ceiling, it is, with all the mechanicals that are present down in that basement, which doesn't have a high storage, doesn't have a high ceiling, with those wires, with the mechanicals, plumbing, sewage. My background is construction, so looking at this, I'm not even sure how we would go about being able to cover those types of things. But with our codes official in Yorkville, he did mention he's doing what he's supposed to be doing and said we may have to go for a variance, and that is why we are here today, sir.
I'd like to open up to the board for questions.
This is Laura from the board. I have a question.
Yes.
So you're, in addition to the stellar ceiling, there's also a mention of asking for relief for wood wainscoting and trim to remain. So I'm wondering, where is that wood wainscoting in relation
so
to?
Yep, I'd like to answer that. In the common hallways, of course, this was purchased this way by us, but in the hallways, in the common hallways, there is a wood paneling. I don't know what's behind it. The home built in 1850, possible that it's actually plaster behind that wood paneling. We don't know. We have not torn it off of the walls.
Is it like newer paneling, like from the 70s, 80s kind of paneling, or like original paneling, like old, like solid wood paneling?
It is not solid wood paneling. If I had to guess, 60s, 70s.
Okay, so it's full height.
It is, yes. Floor
Okay,
to
so
ceiling.
it's probably covering up bad plaster, right? It's probably the usual. Okay. And so when I look at the little floor plan that you sketched out, you're
Yes.
saying it's sort of in that, the common hallway on the second floor, the stair hallways on the first floors. These are the locations
Correct.
you're talking about. Okay.
And that this is Andy from the board. That's not, the wood wainscoting is not inside the units.
That is correct. This is all in the common hallway.
Okay,
So it's not really wainscoting, it's full height paneling.
full height
Okay.
panel.
Excuse me, this is Dan Farley with the Department of State.
Yes.
So I can hear somebody talking in the background. I don't know if it's Tom DiTulio or who it is, but they may want to mute their mic as it may affect your transcript. Thank you.
Okay.
Is the basement access through the interior stairs?
There is not. There is one access to the basement that is from exterior only. That is locked at all times, and tenants do not have access to that basement.
There's already interconnected system in that basement though, if something were to go wrong down there?
There currently is not an interconnected system. That is something that the codes official has told us that we're probably going to have to be doing, is again, the interconnected smoke alarms, not unlike the last petitioner.
Okay.
We do have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. They're not on each of the levels. They're just not interconnected at this time, but we're certainly planning on purchasing those.
Okay.
Along with fire extinguishers and battery backup exit signs.
We have those in place already.
Yeah.
is the, are the unit doors, they have self-closing already? Are they self-closing?
They currently are not. That is something that the zone, our zoning official or our codes official here in Yorkville said that is something that we are going to be doing.
This is Laura from the board. Are the doors into the apartments, are they fire rated in any way? Are they solid wood? Are they hollow? Are they metal?
They are all solid wood doors,
Are they paneled or flush doors?
paneled. Actually a mix. There's paneled and flush.
Okay.
But we do want uniformity. So if we're going to be upgrading them to meet the requirements, they will probably all be the same exact door.
This is Andy from the board. So you are proposing that you treat the full height wood paneling? Is that what you're asking us for? Are you do not want to remove paneling?
Well, again, we don't know what's directly behind that wood paneling. We assume that based on the age of the structure, it's probably a plaster. We could remove one of those and find out what is behind that. And we can address it at that point, but we're looking to make sure that safety is a priority to our tenants.
What would be a recommended treatment? Is there a fire retardant paint that would be available, or would it be covering everything with sheetrock?
Ideally, it would be a graded corridor, so it would be sheetrock. Is it all the walls in the hallways are right now?
That is correct. Yes.
And going down the stairwells? Or just the
That
hallway?
is correct. Yes.
It's pretty substantial what we have in place.
Have you received any quotes for treating it with fire retardant versus re-sheetrocking it?
We have not received any quotes on that as far as either one of those. Treating it with a fire retardant, based on my construction background, probably would be the more cost effective, yet still providing the fire barrier that's needed.
Do you happen to have any pictures of the interior of the building? What we're talking about?
Not readily available, but I can send them to Thomas or Miss McLaughlin. I can get over there later today and be able to send those off, certainly. They are just common hallways, of course.
Yeah. On the second floor hallway, are the front and rear stair are they like connected to each other? Or is there a door at the top of either stair? Or like, is there, you know, if you walk up one stair, you can walk down the other stair without going through any doors once you're on the second floor?
There are no doors at the tops of those stairs now. You enter through the rear of the building, go up the stairs. You could walk through the common hallway, go down the front stairs, out the front exit door.
This is Jeff. I think it would be very helpful to have photos. I know for my part, it's hard to make a full decision without getting a sense. We have your floor plans, but seeing some of these things would be very helpful. And if those photos can be keyed to your floor plan so that we can kind of get a sense of those common spaces and the doors.
Okay.
For my part, that would, I think that's going to be part of just our due diligence and making a decision. It's that we have some photo documentation of its current condition.
I can certainly do that for you, Jeff. Yep.
Yeah, that would require a table.
Yeah, I tried to find some on Zillow, but there's only
nothing in
pictures
there,
of the
yeah.
actual apartments, not of any of the common spaces.
Yeah, it's,
Yes, typically it would be very helpful for us to see some of the pictures of the basement and the hallways and stairwells that are in question. And if you could note on there where some of these pictures were taken, so
Yes,
that
sir.
the board understands. The layout of the building is very helpful, but as Mr. Hinderleiter said, I think the pictures of the interior of the building are really something that's going to help you and help us make a decision.
I can appreciate that. This is new to us, so
Yep.
we've never had to go through this before. So of course,
No problem.
you know, it's a learning experience at the same time. But I have no problem with being able to get over there today, get some photos, and I do have the emails for Mr. DeTulo and Ms. McLaughlin, so I can certainly get those over to you guys today.
So we'd have to table that, correct?
Yeah. Let's ask Tom really what he wants to do with his petition.
Okay, Tom,
He submitted.
Yeah.
I can't say.
Tom,
Are you there, Tom?
should we go into deliberation?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, at this time, the board's going to go into deliberation. Please give us a few minutes to work this out, and we'll be back shortly. You'd like to go off the record?
Stand up.
Like to let the petitioner know that we have the board has decided that there's not enough information to make a decision. The board is requesting some additional information like pictures and description of where the pictures are.
Yep.
We have a choice to adjourn the meeting, or you can withdraw your application. If we adjourn the meeting, then it would be potentially, it would be somewhere between 2 and 4 months before you would come back to the Albany board, depending on what our caseload is for July. Would you like to adjourn and come back to the board?
Well, I definitely don't want to withdraw because I want to make sure we're doing things right. So
Okay. I want to ask you, those are the two options, so I want to make sure that
we would
you're
like to
okay with it.
adjourn. We would like
Okay.
to adjourn. I will provide you with the photos and descriptions
Yeah,
because we do want to move forward to make sure things are right.
I just want to make sure that you know that you know, we don't know what's on our caseload for July, and it could potentially be 4 months because you would come back to the Albany Board of Review.
I understand, but if I withdraw,
Okay.
then I have to begin all over
Correct.
anyways, and I'd be against the safety codes if I'm not addressing this. And
Okay.
again, we just want to make sure we're doing things right.
Okay. So you're clear on what we're asking you to do, and okay.
I am.
I'd like to get a motion from the board member to adjourn.
I'll motion.
Jared Berenger,
I'll second it.
Jackie Coombs. And at this time, the board will adjourn your case.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just make sure
Yes,
you
sir.
pull the entire board. This is Dan Farrell, Department of State.
Okay. I'd like to. 1 second. I'd like to poll our board members for the record. Jackie Coombs.
Aye.
Jared Berenger.
Aye.
Laura Ryder.
Aye.
Jeff Hindley.
Aye.
And Chairman Andy Ellis, aye. Let the record show, the vote 0 ayes, 0 nays to adjourn.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go on to our third case of the day. Petition number 2025-0195. Do we have our petitioner online, Vaughn Common?
I saw it up there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on the box.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Give me 1 second, I'll open space. Nature of the grievance and relief sought. The petition pertains to violations of Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws in New York to an existing 3-family residence, 4,200 square feet, 3 stories in height, of type 5B wood frame construction located at 703 Mohawk Street, City of Utica, County of Oneida, State of New York. Relief is requested from Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 3, Section 3, cellar ceilings, which states that in every such dwelling, 3 stories or more in height, the ceiling of the cellar or the lowest story, if there be no cellar, shall be fire retarded or be equipped with a sprinkler system, unless such ceiling has already been plastered to the satisfaction of the department. Petitioner requests relief to not install gypsum board sheathing in the basement, nor install a sprinkler system. And at this time, I'd like our petitioner to state their case.
Yes. Hi. How you doing, everybody?
And please state your name and address for the court reporter.
My name is Vaughn Common, 219 First Ave, Frankfort, New York, 13340. Basically, I was told by the fire marshal that I needed to either have the sprinkler system or fire retarded sheetrock to go up on the ceiling. But I did try to get, it was hard to get estimates to try to get sprinkler system. And the one that kind of gave me a roundabout was about $30,000 to $50,000, give or take, I guess, depending on how they install it as well. And I do have pictures of the ceiling of the basement there where it'd be very hard to install those sheetrock to cover up the whole ceiling, seeing as how there's lots of pipes, heater vents, and all other things. It's a low ceiling in the basement as well. I was looking for a relief or variance to potentially get the interconnecting fire alarm system.
Did we lose him?
No,
He's
I
still
think
there.
the
Okay.
code enforcement guys started.
Okay.
He's muted, I think.
Did you guys hear me?
No, something else was coming through on our end.
I see Mr. Foster's trying to get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unmuted now. Is that the code enforcement?
I'd like to open up for the
Now he's
board
muted
for
again.
questions.
This is Jeff Underlighter. I see we don't have any pictures of the exterior. So is this I see your application says it's a 3-story plus an attic.
Yes.
What's the access to the attic? What's the status of the occupancy of the attic?
Okay, so there's 2 access. There's the front access that leads to the 2nd and 3rd floor, strictly just for those 2 floors. And the back access has access to the 1st floor, 2nd floor, and 3rd floor. It's enclosed. And I'm sorry, and as well in the back of the stairs, that's how you would access the basement, which is locked with the fireproof door, fire retarded door. I believe rated for, I think it was 90 minutes. It was checked by the fire department.
How do you access the attic space?
Through the back door as well, going up to the 3rd floor, but that is locked. No
So
one
it's not-
has access to either basement or the attic.
Okay, so it hasn't been converted to a habitable space?
No, it is not.
Okay.
Just to make, this is Andy from the board, just to make that clear, there's no tenant access to the basement or the attic space?
No.
How many apartments are on the 1st floor? Like, what's the layout?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the 1st floor is just the 1st unit. It's a stacked 3 unit. So you just have your front. The 1st floor has their own entrance to their floor, which would be on the left side of the building, if you're looking at it. And then they all share the back hallway stairs to exit out of the building. And then the right side of the building, if you're looking at the building, is a door, stairwell leading to the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor.
So to clarify, this is Andy from the board, there are 3 units total, 1 on each floor?
Yes.
This is Jeff. I see that Mr. Foster has noted in the WebEx chat that he is listening, just his audio is not working, allowing him to speak.
Yeah, that's why I'm clarifying.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
This is Fire Marshal Foster, City of Utica. I'm just making sure. I'm listening.
Fire Marshal Foster, can you please give your full name and your address, please, to the court?
Yes, I can. City of Utica Fire Department, Fire Marshal Gerald Foster, 552 Bleecker Street, Utica, New York, 13501.
This is Jackie from the board. Maybe Mr. Foster can answer this question. So the 3 violations of the MRL that were cited, the one that the variance is for the sprinkler system, but what is the status of the self-closing and fire rating on the doors that were also cited? Are those fixed? Are those going to be fixed?
So the owner had a total of 14 violations cited for this building at 703 Mohawk Street. 13 out of those are in compliance to include the other the other two MRLs, which is to include Article 3, Section 28 stairs and entrance halls, and Article 3, Section 30, Article 3, Section 31 is in compliance, which is the inside cellar stairs.
So you can affirm that there is a fire rating on the door down to the basement or cellar then?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So.
Everything else is just the-
Yep. Interconnected, is there interconnected system in this already? Yeah.
What's that?
What is the current alarm system that's in the building?
It's just all battery powered alarm systems. I did put an alarm system that are interconnected through Bluetooth within the hallways and basement for the time being. But in the units itself are all the 9-volt battery powered.
Okay, so there's no interconnection between the units themselves and the basement or the common areas at this time?
Not like wired, but Bluetooth, they're connected that way.
So wireless, like.
So wireless, but they
Yeah.
are so if there was an issue in the basement, it would fire off in all the units, correct?
Yeah, it would fire off into the hallways itself.
Yeah, not the units yet.
Not the units, no.
It doesn't look like we use the basement storage. Doesn't look like he, that looks.
Service.
It's like a chest freezer. Oh, no, that's the washer.
This is Andy from the board. There is no washer and dryer unit or anything like that down in the basement level.
No. Well, there's one, but it's disconnected and it's being thrown away.
Okay.
I got to get it out from there.
So this is Laura on the board. The tenants have no access to the basement.
No, there's the electronic pad key lock on there that I installed, and the attic has a lock on it as well.
Do we have any other comments from the building code official? Mr. Foster, do you have any other comments for the board?
Negative. I'm in the compliance with whatever the board sees fit for this property.
At this time, the board will go into deliberation. Give us a few minutes, and I'd like to go off the record.
On the record.
At this time, the board has one question for our City of Utica building inspector. Do you currently do annual inspections of the smoke fire alarm system?
Negative. We don't do annual. What we do is we follow our 1203 process, which is every 3 years or every 30 to 36 months. But we're back in the properties. So once this property is in compliance, we give it 30 to 36 months, and then we go back into the property and do a reinspection in that time frame. So we do not do a yearly.
So do you want them to do it yearly, or do we just want them to do it when they use it?
They have, in the city of Schenectady, we haven't submitted yearly.
Yeah, right, third party,
Third-party submission.
right, they
Yeah.
submit. But do they want that here? So, Mr. Foster, would you be opposed to them submitting something to you that they're having a third party test it annually, or every 3 years is just how often you want to have to deal with the file?
So I'm in agreement with you. So even though the property is to be inspected every 30 to 36 months by NFPA statutes for that alarm system or sprinkler system, it should be applicable. The inspection process should be applicable to those standards also. So if the owner had to have this installed and other properties in the city of Utica, we do require other property owners that have these systems in place, if it's required semi-annually, annually, quarterly, that they do provide us with those documentation, but we don't actually go out and do the inspections every year. We require them to a third party like you just suggested.
So we'll still make them do it annually.
Right, submitted annually.
Okay, so we're gonna have them submit it to you, that, the third party.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Submit.
you're welcome.
Okay. Okay, upon hearing of the application of Vaughn Common, 219 First Avenue, Frankfurt, New York, and upon taking testimony and hearing argument thereon at a duly noted hearing before the Capital Region Albany Board of Review held via video conference call WebEx at 1 Commerce Plaza, 99 Washington Avenue, 5th floor, conference room, suite 505, Albany, New York, 12231 on May 31st, 2025, and upon all other papers in this matter, the board makes the following determination. Nature of the grievance and relief sought, the petition pertains to violations of Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York to an existing three-family residence, 4,200 square feet, 3 stories in height, of type 5B wood frame construction, located at 703 Mohawk Street, City of Utica, County of Oneida, State of New York. Relief is requested from Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Residence Law, Article 3, Section 30, cellar ceilings, which states that in every such dwelling, 3 stories or more in height, the cellar of the ceiling or the lowest story, if there be no cellar, shall be fire retarded or be equipped with a sprinkler system, unless such ceiling has already been plastered to the satisfaction of the department. Petitioner requests relief to not install gypsum board sheathing at the basement, nor install a sprinkler system. Finding of facts, number 1, that the building is the subject of this petition is properly classified under 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Resident Law, Article 1, Section 433 as a multiple dwelling. Number 2, that the subject building is approximately 4,200 square feet in gross area, was originally constructed around 1902, contained 3 dwelling units, having dwelling unit on the first floor, dwelling unit on the second floor, and dwelling unit on the third floor, serviced by stairs at the front and the rear of the building. Number 3, the subject building is required to conform with the provisions of Article 3 of the Multiple Residence Law as provided in Section 25, in that it existed on July 1st, 1952, or was converted to a multiple dwelling after July 1st, 1952, and is not a hotel or similar dwelling subject to Article 4 of the Multiple Residence Law. Number 4, Article 3, Section 30 of the Multiple Residence Law requires in every such dwelling 3 stories or more in height. The ceiling of the cellar or the lowest story, if there be no cellar, shall be fire retardant or be equipped with a sprinkler system, unless such ceiling has already been plastered to the satisfaction of the department. Number 5, the lowest story cellar ceiling of this multiple family dwelling is not enclosed with fire retardant material and does not contain a sprinkler system. The fire in the cellar could easily spread throughout the building before it is noticed. There is mechanical system piping and electrical wiring along the ceiling of this unoccupied cellar, which would make installing a fire retardant ceiling very difficult. Number 6, the building presently has working smoke detectors in the basement, front and rear stairs, and each apartment has smoke and carbon monoxide detectors in the living room and bedrooms. Number 7, the installation of smoke detector alarms that are interconnected to the stair smoke detectors will provide early notice of possible fire event and notify the tenants. Number 8, the basement contains water heaters, heating equipment, and otherwise not used for any tenant storage or laundry. Number 9, the petitioner states the attic and basement access are locked and have no tenant access. Number 10, petitioner states that the building has been regularly inspected by the fire department and has passed every inspection. Number 11, the local code official has provided his results of the most recent inspection, property maintenance inspection, although 2 other violations of the MRL have been cited related to the self-closing fire-rated doors between the basement and the common areas. The owner and the CEO have verified that the conditions have been remediated and a self-closing fire-rated door is present at the entrance to the basement and will remain there. Number 12, the local code official has been consulted in this matter and supports the granting of the variance under Part 1205. Number 13, the building shall otherwise comply with all other local and state building codes and local ordinances. Conclusion of law, the proposed variance will not substantially adversely affect the code's provision for health, safety, and security. Strict compliance with the provisions of the Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code would entail practical difficulties, economic hardship, or would otherwise be unwarranted because such would be physically or legally impractical and would be unnecessary in light of the alternatives which, without the loss of level of safety, achieve the intended objective of the code. Determination, wherefore it is determined that the application for the variance of Chapter 61B of the Consolidated Laws of New York, Multiple Resident Law, Article 3, Section 30, be and is hereby granted with the following conditions. Number 1, that the alarm devices be provided in the cellar, attic, that a smoke alarm be provided on each landing of the front and rear exit stairways, and that a smoke and carbon monoxide detectors be provided and located throughout the building as required by current code and as approved by the fire marshal. Number 2, the system annually at a minimum shall be third-party inspected and results submitted to the City of Utica Building Department. Number 3, that all smoke detector devices shall be interconnected together as one system and in conformance with current code. Number 4, tenant storage shall not be allowed in the unfinished basement area. Number 5, tenant laundry areas shall not be allowed in the unfinished basement area. Now I'll read in the short environmental assessment form, EAF, motion for negative declaration for short EAF for the Board of Review. Number 1, that the Board of Review find and determine that the issuance of a variance in petition 2025-0195 will not have a significant environmental impact and will not have a significant adverse effect on any significant fish or wildlife habitat, scenic resource, or statewide significant important agricultural land or area included in an approved local waterfront revitalization program. And number 2, that the Department of State be authorized to sign and deliver on behalf of the Board of Review and the Department of State, State Environmental Quality Review Act short, environmental assessment form indicating that no or small impact may occur in response to each question in part 2 of the form, and determining in part 3 of the form that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impact. May I have a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Now I'll poll our board members. Laura Ryder,
Aye.
Jackie Coons,
Aye.
Jared Berenger,
Aye.
Jeffrey Hindleiter,
Aye.
and I, Chairman Andy Ellis, vote aye. The state for the record show that we have 5 ayes and 0 nays. This decision is limited to the specific building and application before it as contained within the petition and should not be interpreted to give implied approval of any general plans or specifications presented in support of this application. Chairman Andy Ellis and board members Laura Ryder, Jackie Coons, Jared Berenger, and Jeffrey Hindleiter all concur. So ordered. Do we have any questions from our?
Okay.
Say again?
Do we have any comments from the petitioner? I thought I heard him talking.
Oh, yes. So is that okay that the system is connected through Bluetooth, or is it got to be hardwired?
No,
It can be either.
interconnected, yeah, whatever way that you have it.
As long as it's interconnected, there's no requirement to be either.
Okay, and inspected every year as well annually. Okay.
Yep. And it can be a third-party inspection.
Okay. Sound good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You would like to go off the record? Back on the. Thank you for your patience. I'd just like to make a reminder, when making comments to the board, please provide a descriptive or please address the board, give your name, title, and a legal address so that our court reporter can have all the information requested before you speak. And we may have to stop from time to time for technical difficulties and consult our staff. Move on to our last petition, which is 2025-0324. Nature of the grievance and relief sought. This petition pertains to variances in connection with the proposed development of a new e-commerce storage and distribution center for consumer products. Occupancy group S1, moderate hazard storage, with a footprint of approximately 652,060 square feet, 5 stories in height, for a total area of approximately 3,232,740 square feet. Construction type 1A, fire resistant with automatic sprinkler protection throughout and located at New York State Route 5S. With tax map ID 54-1-36, Town of Florida, New York 12010, County of Montgomery, State of New York. Petitioner seeking relief from 19 NYCRR Part 12.1 of the Building Code of New York State, Section 602-1 and Table 601, which states the building and structures erected or to be erected altered or extended in height or area shall be classified in one of the 5 construction types defined in section 602.2 through section 602.5. Building elements shall have a fire resistant rating not less than specified in table 601, and the interior walls shall have a fire resistant rating not less than that specified in table 602. Where they're required to have a fire resistant rating by table 601, the building elements shall comply with the applicable provisions of section 703.2. The projected openings, air ducts, and air transfer openings in the building element shall not be required unless required by other provisions of the code. Petitioner is seeking relief to allow the use of an alternate method of fireproofing steel framing. 19 NYCRR Part 1221, 2022 Building Code of New York State Section 1017.2 and Table 1017.2/19 NYCRR Part 1225, 2020 Fire Code of New York State Section 1017.2 and Table 1017.2, which states exit access travel distance shall not exceed the values given in Table 1017.2. Table 1017.2 provides a required exit access distance, travel distance for an S1 occupancy for the sprinkler system to be a maximum of 250 feet. Petitioner requests relief from an exit access travel distance of 250 feet, maximum B to 400 feet. And 19 NYCRR point, or 1225 of the Fire Code of New York State, Section 5003.1.1, maximum allowable quantity per control area, which states the maximum allowable quantity per control area shall be specified in tables 5003.1.11 through 503.1.14. The petitioner requests to allow an increase of maximum allowable quantities MAQ for flammable and combustible liquids. At this time, I'd like the petitioner to state their case to the board.
I'll kick things off. My name is Kim Mason. I'm an attorney with Phillips Legal at 125 Main Street, Buffalo, New York, 14203. I'll just introduce the team that we have here with us today. So we're representing BMG Albany LLC, which is the applicant. Here from the applicant from Water Property Group is Sean Baggett. And then with the fire protection engineers, who we know we really want to speak to today, not the lawyer, we have Mac and Foyle and Grant Gephardt as well. I also just want to thank, we have Chief Les Bramer from the Town of Florida Fire Department with us as well, and Carmen Sinatropy, the code enforcement officer from the town on. So thank you both for coming and participating. We really appreciate your time. We have worked closely with the town and the fire department on this. We had an initial in-person kickoff meeting with them on March 18th to run through kind of this application, what the variances were going to look like, what this performance-based design is that we're going to talk about, kind of initially present that. And then we had a follow-up meeting with some representatives from the town virtually on April 1st as well. Copies of the performance-based design and some of the prior approvals that have been issued across the state were provided to the town and fire department as well. So we again thank them for participating and being available to answer any questions that the board may have as well. Just to kind of give a high-level overview of the project, I know some of it was already read into the record. This is the development of an e-commerce storage and distribution facility that will be for consumer products. It will be occupied and operated by a single tenant, and that tenant has a very unique storage and distribution system that's customized to its e-commerce business needs, which kind of brings us here on these variance items. The site's about 137 acres. Footprint of the facility is approximately 650,000 square feet. We're looking at 5 stories and a total area just over 3 million square feet. It is a group S1 occupancy. concrete and steel construction with sprinkler protection throughout that you'll hear more about today. From a timing perspective, the applicant's looking to begin construction in September of this year with the goal of October 2027 for the facility to come online to meet the tenant's capacity needs. And importantly, this project is going to be create a positive impact on the local economy. We're looking at creating at least 750 jobs plus a few hundred construction jobs associated with the project as well. And as you'll see in the application, these variances are a gating item for the project. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. On the variances, I'll just touch on them real high level on what they are and what our justifications are, and then Matt will really get into the details. But as you mentioned, we're requesting variances from 3 components of the code. We outline them in more detail in that submission that you all should have from April 10th of this year. 2 of the 3 variances that we've requested have been the subject of multiple applications that have been approved by the state before. That's the travel distance, the exit access travel distance variance, and the fire resistance rating variance. And in the materials, we did include a copy of the most recent approval and what those 19 approval conditions looked like in those prior applications. The performance-based design that was used on those prior applications is the same design that we're talking about here. And the basis for the variances and justification for the variances remains the same as well. There was some additional fire testing that was performed that Matt can get into. So on the exit access travel distance, the size and layout of this facility, this prototypical design, it's necessary for the facility operations. We've got a building length that's over 550 feet, and the operations of the building itself rely on large open floor plates, which is what's necessitating the exit access travel distance up to 400 feet when 250 is required. On the fire resistance rating variance, traditional methods of fireproofing the steel aren't viable here due to, I'll get into more detail on this, but time, cost, and potential impacts to the sensitive robotics that are really critical to how the facility functions. On the new variance that is included in the application, projects proposing the storage and distribution of certain goods for individual online retail sale that are classified as flammable and combustible liquids. The facility's layout and the scale and size of this facility, along with the unique storage arrangement that the tenant uses that you'll hear about, is why we're proposing storage and distribution of these products in amounts that are above the maximum allowable qualities. Limitations, I should say. So you'll hear about some proposed unique storage limitations that are meant to address that, but again, it's tied back to the applicant's business operations. On the criteria for approval of the variances, why we believe the variances are justified under the regulatory standards that are laid out. The first one that we've outlined in our application has to do with an excessive and unreasonable economic burden. On the fire resistance rating side, for prior applications that we've done across the state with buildings of a very similar scale and size, and we've confirmed also for this building design as well, the cost of complying with the fire resistance rating requirements can be upwards of $80 million, which is cost prohibitive. And in addition, installation could take up to 6 to 8 months of construction time. And if the structural steel were to be fireproofed using one of those traditional approaches, there's significant doubt that it could meet the needs of the facility the tenant has for its capacity, which is, again, as we mentioned, looking to begin operations at this facility in October 2027. And these impacts would make the project unviable. We've also laid out a public policy argument as well in terms of the social and economic goals of this region and the state, with the significant dollars that are brought into the community through this project, the jobs that are offered both long-term and on the construction side of things. Another aspect, which Matt can get into, is physically impracticable. So we already kind of talked about from the exit access travel distance, just the length of the building and the size and logistics of how the facility is laid out. We also have some concerns on the fireproofing side with respect to if you were to use cementitious spray fireproofing in the facility, there is, vibration that occurs over time that can cause that to have a dust coating on the floors, which can impact the robots that really are a key part of this facility's operations, and they run across the floors. So that's an impact, again, that's specific to this tenant. And then finally, on the maximum allowable quantities, again, that ties back to kind of this unique facility layout and the scale of the facility and the need to store those types of products in the same way that the tenant is storing the other products, just based on how the facility works. And then finally, on the justification side, and perhaps most importantly, the position that it's unnecessary in light of an alternative design, this performance-based design, which achieves the intents of the code without any loss of safety. And there's a performance-based design that Harrington has prepared a report on that includes significant improvements to sprinkler system performance, reliability, and duration. And again, as I mentioned, this additional variance that's being requested is based on that same justification, based on that same report, and there's been some additional fire testing done to prove that out. But essentially, the proposed alternative design, this performance-based design, will provide an equal, if not greater, level of safety than would be provided if we were to construct the building according to the prescriptive code requirements. And again, just reiterating, these variances are critical to the project and its ability to move forward. So I can answer any questions, but I will now turn it over to Matt, who can really get into the details of how the building and the performance-based design works.
So I'm Matt Guilfoyle, Harrington Group, 3237 Satellite Boulevard, Georgia 30096. So I'll go through those three just a little bit more detail and then answer any questions. So travel distance, I'll start with, and I'm looking at page 2 of our report, which is the application. I'll just quick out over your skill first with kind of a high level summary of the alternative design. So it starts with a comparison for code, the primary and secondary structural steel. Primary and secondary structural steel is what we're trying to detect in this building. That would be where the alternative is applied to. So in terms of when you think of floor assembly, we're trying to protect the structural members that support the floor slab itself, but the floor slab will still be constructed prescriptively, and any penetrations through that floor slab would be prescriptively protected as well. So it's really limited to the structural steel in the facility and in all portions of the facility. So the code requires a maximum of 3 hours. There's some 2-hour requirements in there, and the roof can be reduced to 1.5 hours. And we're proposing to provide a sprinkler system that's been tested through full-scale fire testing with sprinklers at UL Underwriters Laboratories, their laboratory in Northbrook, Illinois, to show that suppression can be achieved with this design. So the design encompasses 9 K25 extended cover sprinklers. So the kind of second part of this table is trying to compare what prescriptively you could minimally provide compared to what our design is. So there's on the storage level, it's either 0.4 or 0.7. That really depends on ceiling height. The ground level is a little bit taller, about 28 feet, and then the roof level, because of the roof slope, it goes up to about 23 feet. Those require about 0.7 or could require 0.7 GPM per square foot. The shorter level, which are 2, 3, 4, about 13 foot 9, would require 0.4 GPM per square foot. And our design, it's not based on a density per se, it's based on a number of sprinklers, but based on the spacing of roughly 100 square feet, we do allow for a slight increase to avoid constructability issues. It comes out to 1.38 gallons per square foot. So it's a good deal of increase in the amount of water. That's part of the way we're able to achieve suppression in the test. And then during that testing, we are able to monitor steel temperatures and then as well as other temperatures throughout the test lab, such as the sprinkler temperatures when they activate, what temperature links are at, and so on. So the first portion is largely based on protection of the steel by the sprinkler system. Now, to address the lack of passive protection that usually you have in a building, we are providing a redundant water supply. So there will be 2 redundant fire tanks, separately sized, provided 3 hours of duration. We've increased that duration to 3 hours to match the construction type. Long longest hourly rating of 3 hours. So 2 tanks will be provided independently to provide the fire or sprinkler command, whichever one ends up being larger for that 3-hour duration. And then there's also 2 independent diesel fire pumps or diesel driven fire pumps at those 2 tanks. And then those both have 2 connections. One connection will be to an underground loop that feeds hydrants on the site, and then they have lead-ins to the building. And then the second connection is basically an express main straight into the building where there's a second interior that circles the ground floor, and that also ties into all the pipes. So we're trying to offset the low passive system, the cementitious spray or intermittent game by increasing the reliability of the sprinkler system. That second independent water supply distribution is the same. The next portion is the travel distance. You won't see that on this table because it's all based on fire modeling and egret modeling. That's at towards the end of the report, but it's an analysis of certain design fires that we've put together in the building to compare what the environment of the building, the smoke spread is through the building for what we expect to be in the building. For this case, we base all of our fires on a polystyrene plastic burning. There's a relatively high yield combustion and a pretty high soot yield. So your smoke ends up being, the smoke production is fairly high, fairly dense. And we compare those design fires against the egress analysis to confirm that oxygen can be provided with the time to get out of. We positioned 1 fire on the topmost level, level 5. 2 fires that cover 2, 3, 4. They're essentially identical in floor height and footprint and use. And then 3 fires on the ground level. So look at how, the fire in a corner versus the middle of the building versus wall location, and then also try to line those up with stair locations to make sure that in our egress analysis, we're then accounting for stairs either being inaccessible because of fires there, or the smoke spread causes it to be inaccessible. So in our egress model, we do 1 model per fire model. Compare those results, make sure that if we think an exit wouldn't be able to be reached, it wouldn't be safely able to be reached, we essentially take that out of our model and discount the amount of exits in our building. So it forces occupants to move further away from that area and use stairs that aren't as affected or aren't affected by the smoke. And then the last portion is the MAQ discussion on limited flammable and combustible liquids. So these are products that are consumer grade products. The tenant stores in it's called a kind of a random stove throughout their building. So they don't have one area for any given product or any given classification of product. It's first come, first serve on where these items are in the storage system. And the premise of this is to essentially affect that hazard. You put a bunch of flammable liquids in one area, that could be a relatively large hazard. But if we're able to disperse them evenly throughout the building, use that hazard and protect that important need. So we provided and completed full-scale fire testing again to, well, we initially looked at it to say, could this be done? And found that the answer was yes. And that with the limited amount of flammable liquids and combustible liquids, you could still suppress a fire in the storage array and still maintain the steel temperatures with the steel alternative. So confirm those two items for the storage of the flammable liquids. We'll say it is, when you do the math, it is a large amount of gallons in excess of the typical MAQs, but that dispersion is what the basis of the design is based on. So every pod, the storage shelf, is 3 by 3 by 8.5 roughly. Each of those pods would be limited to 60 ounces of flammable liquids in total, and then the total container size would be 16 ounces, but no container size larger than 16 ounces. And then there's also a further limit of no more than 12 ounces, no more than 16 ounces of class 2 non-miscible, and then the other remaining portion would be class 1B miscible. So we found, as is common to find in the protection schemes, that a miscible product is much more easily protected than a non-miscible product. So that makes up that last portion. I do have to call out that in that table, say an approximate gallons per floor of 11,750. That number should actually be 12,075. Is correct elsewhere in the report and the application. It roughly comes out to, if you were to load every single pod in the building to 100% at that 60 ounces, which is probably wouldn't achieve that state. Your constantly snowing and heating products. So there's a flow of products that would be at roughly, or exactly 49,500 gallons throughout the levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. So a bit just under 2 minutes for that gallon spread out dispersed.
Can you just repeat the approximate?
Yes, the approximate
12,000.
12,375 gallons.
Thank you.
And that's based on how many odd. Those are the three alternatives that we're seeking today. Actually, go into more detail on any of them.
And that amount is in our cover letter as well.
Okay. Page 22. Correctly pulled up there.
And page 9 as well.
You talked in detail about fire department access roads. That discussion is going to due for your approval, obviously, correct? So that's going to be completely around in one side, meets the specs for the aerial apparatus. So 26 feet on the one side and then the rest is 20 feet wide. Or is it completely, is it going to be 26 feet all the way around? You know? Yeah. Yep.
It's Grant Gebhardt with Farrington Group. 3237 Satellite Boulevard, Suite 525, Georgia 30096. We are going to meet the apparatus access around the full facility. So, okay. The aerial access on one side will be restricted.
Okay.
I think it's on the east side.
And that's going to insert, so you don't have to worry about any dead ends or anything like that. That's going to go around, complete access around the entire building.
I think there was a question about a dead end and we worked on it around the level.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm sure you can go ahead.
So.
Got, so it talks about minimum, it'll be minimal personnel in the, even to that 400 feet, right? So, and it's only because that's within those storage pods themselves. So can you just talk about like on a daily basis, what will be for the minimal, like, I know it said up to 1,800 people will be in the building at possibly one time, but, and then it reduces that down into that minimal. So we're talking very few people in that area, correct? For that maximum distance.
Yes. So there's we don't have it shown on the drawings. There is a fence that separates the employee area from the robotic porch. And that fence is roughly 30 feet off the exterior wall.
Okay.
So casting guard, a normal workstation would be in that building.
And that will meet the normal requirements of like a 250 feet egress. Yeah.
Yes.
That's 56 feet. Yeah. Exhibit B, page 56. Exhibit B.
Thank you. So that fence separates kind of normal employees from the storage field. There are on average about 4 employees that are working on any given floor going in and out of that space. So that largely do maintenance. Maintenance is,
that was 4, you said? 4, okay.
Maintenance is usually something like that is falling out of the pot. There's also some maintenance on the robotics. They don't out there, they go out and diagnose it, and if they can get it going again, they move it around. If not, they just take it off the floor. But after essentially every job, if it's in a given area, they can do new jobs, but they don't travel within the field. They enter the field, do what they're supposed to do, that task, leave the field, go to the next one. And they're protected by vests that has radio communicators on it. And they send out radio responder, radio signals. They have 2 of them, so they're redundant supplies, and that's interacting with the system that controls the robots. So as the robots, they're moving around, either they have the pod or they don't have the pod, they'll take out basically that 50 person there with that type of vest. And as it gets closer, it slows down. If it gets within a certain distance, it stops entirely. But yeah, at any given point, about 4 people on the given floor in and out of that.
Sandy from the board. So are they monitored individually, the people inside, so not only the robot knows they're in there, that the staff knows they're in there
Yeah, so they have a,
and their location.
yep, they're monitoring, they can see where all the people are and all the robots are as they move around. So part of their procedure, when they go in is they basically designate a path. So they've got a tablet, designate a path that's gonna be their path in and their path out. And they're being monitored by the system overall, and someone knows that they're there.
And so
So you're good.
just to clarify, the perimeter meets the 250 feet of exit access to travel, and the only areas are in the pod areas,
It's,
or is
it's
there?
very close. I can't say with 100%
Okay.
certainty that the area outside the fence is 250 feet to a given exit. It's very close. There's no areas outside that fence that requires 400. So the 400 foot is really needed at kind of the center of those.
Each of those levels.
If you think of those levels as split them, right? At the center of those, the way the stairs are laid out, that becomes your 400 foot travel distance. You also need it on the ground floor. So the ground floor doesn't have this separation. Chain link fence is all material handling. So that you definitely need, again, it's the central region of the ground floor. But because of the material handling and it's the nature of where those systems are laid out, you try to get a lot of that stuff off the floor so that they maintain the 400 foot. The ground floor is more areas where people are working at that point. You know, their normal workstations are high.
Even at the first floor.
On the ground.
Okay.
This is Laura on the board. On the levels where it's, like where the robotic area is gated off the perimeter, how many access points are there through the gate? So like if you're in the inside of the, with the robots, and how many points of exit you have to get to the perimeter wall?
There's many. I don't have an exact number, but they lay it out so that you maintain that 400 foot distance. So thinking about a building I've been in, maybe every 150 feet or so, they'll have an access door, and they're provided on all sides of that floor. And they're provided on the way in, they're locked. The fire department make sure there's the right access there, but on the way out, it's all panic hardware. Backside of it, just push in,
Right.
walk right out.
So that, right, the natural inclination is to exit the way you came in, but there may be a situation where that can't happen, so.
This is Andy from the board. So there's no access within the cage of the different levels. You have to go out of the cage to go down the level, or would
Yes.
that not be typical of them? Would they stay on that level for their duration of their shift?
So that wouldn't be typical. They're assigned to one floor.
Okay.
But yes, the only ways to floor to floor is through the stairs for employees. There are some shafts around the building that help products. So there are some conveyance, vertical conveyance. There's also a vertical reciprocating conveyor. Looks like a giant dumbwaiter. At first look, it might look like an elevator, but it's not a passenger elevator. So those are not used for employees. That's just used for products and other equipment around the building. There are two elevators. The main entrance on the plan in the central is the main office complex. There's an elevator there. And then on the back side of the building, we get central and central lead to the expand of the building. There's another elevator there for size for the fire department use for use. But those aren't typical for floors. Primary method is the stairs. And all the stairs are located up the perimeter.
And is the chute for the goods, shall we say, everything's properly fire rated for Chase and
So
stairs, elevators, and
yeah, so the kind of the box of the warehouse is the warehouse. Everything that supports that storage system is discount port. So all those pump outs that you see, those are the shafts. Those are constructed as 2-hour rated shafts. They have a fire shutter that closes to separate and maintain that hourly rating. Some instances, there's a conveyor that goes through that creates a pickup. There's a small gap. That's part of our design to ensure that that's cleared. When we move along a small section that continues to move after the fire alarm goes off, use that section, so they do the time to say if it's on the start of that small section, about a foot, 2 foot of conveyance. It moves it through the fire shutter opening, allows the shutter to close. So I'm sure all those openings are restrictively it works for our range.
This is Jeff Hinderleiter from the board. Sorry I'm not present there and we have to deal with technology. The public water supply, the redundancy, has, are you doing on-site water supply or you're relying entirely on the water distributor for your redundancy?
We did a flow test and analyzed the water, and we're going to do 2 on-site tanks. So there'll be the 2 on-site tanks for fire water, both sides independently. So no connection other than the refilling of those tanks. But since they're sized for the full duration, we're not relying on any of that refill rate for the total fire water.
Great.
So that it's 3 hours, right? That I read that. So that 3 hours is just based on what's in those holdings already. So that correct.
Take it from the and give them the 3 hours. They do have a refill. Right. Refill rate, and they have a bypass on them. It's size, so that's what the calculation is.
What's your power backup look like? Because having all of this sounds like intelligent technology to help maintain safety, maintain functionality, and then obviously fire pumps, etc. What's the power backup system that you're planning on using?
So the building doesn't run on loss of power. If there's loss of power, the building shuts down. There are obviously the required emergency power and emergency lighting through the building that's provided, and all the code requirements for battery backups for the fire alarm system. But all the use of the building, the storage of the MHE equipment, that all shuts down. There's no backup for that. The fire pumps are both diesel driven, so those have their dedicated diesel supplies. But otherwise, the building loses power, the building shuts down, and everybody leaves, goes home.
Okay, so you talked about smoke shutters. Those things are connected to a power backup system, or they have fail safe where the system holds them in tension, and when the power goes out, they close on their own.
Yeah, I believe each of those fire shutters have a Sentinel device that have a battery backup incorporated in them. So they're tied. The system will have the code required. I think it's 24 hours of battery life, right? And those shutters are being kept open because they have that battery supply, and then would fail closed in the case of running out of battery supplies. They have also smoke detection. They're activated by obviously fusible link, but smoke detection on either side of the shutters. So if they're zoned or it's kind of sequenced so that if the detector on the warehouse side goes off, all of the shutters at that given shaft, so if there's 3 or 4 openings into that shaft at that given location, those would all close. But if the smoke comes in on the shaft side, all of the shutters in that shaft would close. And the idea is to try to isolate it to the floor of origin or the shaft if it happens to be in the shaft.
Great.
Can I jump in? Yeah. This is Grant Deb, Architecting Group. The New York state determinations from past projects like this have incorporated a smoke-proof enclosure aspect of the stairwells. So we've included stair pressurization systems and warehouse exhaust. Going through a rational analysis, doing things by the book for each of those. I believe we're going to use generators as backup power for those components, for the exhaust fans and the stair press fans.
Did you guys evaluate, you mentioned the problems, and I recognize the problems with cementous fire protection and the sensitivity of the system. Did you evaluate other fire resistive coatings, paints and things of that nature, and compared that in your analysis?
Yes, sir. Good morning. This is Sean Bagg, Water Property Group, EMG Albany, the applicant, real estate developer. To that point about the cementous not working for the facility, we did investigate missing painting. And a recent estimate that I received from general contractor. That is proving pretty costly. It's very expensive to do and quite cost prohibitive. Unencumbered, meaning without factory and contingency fee insurance, I'm already at 85.2 million. If we were to factor in the contingency budget, fee, insurance, I could be as high as around 98 million. Would cost alone to be pretty prohibitive, as well as the 6 to 8 months it takes to actually install that domestically. Not lend itself to the project.
As you've stated that you have multiple facilities that kind of move through the area and around the country. And then the ones in New York, I'm going off the assumption that you've had similar approvals. How have they performed? Has there been incidents? And how have these, obviously you've done a lot of work in your analysis and doing desktop analysis and computer modeling. Have you had to have any of those models tested in a real life scenario, and how has that happened?
The one I'm aware of occurred, there was a fire at the Syracuse facility or Clay, New York facility. And from reports from I touched base with the fire department, everything went according to plan. They had 1 or 2 sprinklers go off. At that time, they weren't sure how many sprinklers went off, but 1 or 2 sprinklers went off, and they basically came in for cleanup operations. There's another portion of the previous approvals that include a fire safety force. So it's a group of individuals that are trained, they're staffed 24/7 at the building, and they help with the responding fire department find the fire. And they go through training from a organization that's, I believe it's worded as certified to train per the city of New York. So they go through that training, and they said that process worked well. They were able to get to the building, find the location of the fire, and then the sprinklers performed as we anticipated. And they had just kind of minimal cleanup activities for that event.
Great, thank you.
So this is Jackie from the board, kind of on the topic of the fire training of the employees and what Laura said about familiarity of the building. Are these employees typically the same ones, or do they move around from warehouse to warehouse regularly? Do they become familiar with their building?
So I believe they can move from warehouse to warehouse, but it's not common to usually stay at one location, and then you may move around jobs in that building, but it's not, I understand it's not variable where you show up, you don't know what you're doing, right? You go to the same location for a couple weeks, months, and then you can change your kind of role. So you typically, our understanding is that the employees are familiar with their routes into the building and out of the building. And they do go through a quarterly evacuation drill to train on evacuating the building. And that process is a full building evacuation. The armed rigs throughout the entire building, they evacuate it. There are muster points outside the building where each employee has a badge that they scan to get in and out of the building. At those muster points, they're also scanning badges to get account of people coming out. They don't use the building. Everybody's scanning in. And then also, if somebody wasn't to get out of the building, at that time,
Except in the event of a power failure and then that accountability system that's not on the generator.
That's my understanding, correct?
Okay.
Have you seen, Jeff from the board again, have you seen any facilities any challenges with communications from external sources? So a lot of times fire, this size of facility, if they have to get in there, maintaining communication systems, how is that performed in these facilities, or have you had to take other measures in hand?
It's definitely a challenge. It will be a repeater system or BDA system throughout the building that will be provided. And during the turnover, you would go with the local fire department and test that to make sure radio communications can be achieved throughout the building. But without that system, it is typically a challenge just based on the amount of concrete and metal facility.
Do you have an increased your inspection frequency and testing frequency on these things? Does the client as a company go above and beyond? Is it annual, semi-annual? What is the testing and inspection frequency in all these various systems? Do they meet the code or do you exceed the code?
Yeah, largely it's meeting the code. So NFPA 25 for the fire pumps, it's weekly runs, and then just the code compliant maintenance on the systems as they are. Because of that, we have thought about this, and because of the redundant nature, we think that addresses that concern over increased maintenance or the need to do increased maintenance. If you found that one of those systems wasn't working, one pump wasn't operating, you needed maintenance on it, that kind of serves the purpose to have the second pump to serve as that backup. Both those pumps are, again, they're sized independently, so you don't need them to operate in parallel. They are sized to appropriately function by in one pump operates at a time. You don't need both pumps to operate to achieve the pressure needed.
Thank you.
So just Laura again on the board, just another quick clarification on the maximum allowable quantities of flammable products. So you're saying that they're randomly stored throughout the floor plate and possibly in different places every day, like as there's space available and as deliveries come and go, right? So there's never necessarily the same spot. So, but they're never amassed in such a way that they're all in one spot, and that is monitored, so that never happens.
Yeah, so it's monitored through the stowing process. So there'll be software controls essentially that says this pod keeps track. They know where everything is in the building, so it keeps track of how many ounces are in that pod itself. So when employees would go to stow, it basically told you can't stow in that if that pod is already holding 60 ounces or if the container with that over 60 ounces. Okay. So through that process of what you can put in the pod, that's other control.
But just by pod, but you could still have like an amassed amount in adjacent pods possibly, or is there like something written into the programming that says, you can't even be in this area at all because it's going to be too much?
They don't control the dispersion of the pod where they go, but we try to account for that in our testing. So in our testing, we had all these pods are laid out on a storage grid, so they have very specific spots. Not that each pod has a specific pod, but it's a spot for a pod. Yeah. When we tested, we started the fire at the intersection of four pods. Four pods were fairly close together. That gap got 4.5 inches pods, and we made sure that the that we were testing in those corners. So we essentially started a fire under each of the corners of the pods. We used all four igniters to fire going and have it happen fairly quickly and have a fast growing fire. But right above those were all of the flammable liquids in those four pods. So we try to account for that concern of, where would be the most hazardous, most concerning spot with these flammable liquids in a pod? What about the next one? So we put them as close as we could. And then the next one surrounding that kind of next ring. We put them all facing in. So it gives the best chance of the fire to that next pod than involving another. But the system itself doesn't monitor that. It's just based on that per pod level, right? So if you have 60 ounces, you do the testing. Reasonable worst case for where they could be. With that testing, you can put the where one of the field as long as you want to see that 60 ounces.
So the request for exceeding the maximum allowable is just is basically just across the whole, like aggregate of floor.
This is Jeff. To follow up on that, so you said that the previous variances are ones that you've sought at other facilities, but this maximum allowable quantity variance is novel, is new, something that you don't have at these other facilities?
Correct. We would, yes, that answer is yes.
Okay. How is given the geolocation of this facility, is that, I guess, what's the justification at this point for if this model is working in other places? Coming now with this one, wanting to have that specific variance granted for this specific facility, what makes this facility unique as opposed to the others? Because I think we've said this one's a little bit larger than some of the others, but then it's also, you're asking for this variance in addition. So what's the uniqueness of this place seeking this variance?
That's a good question. The answer is there's nothing unique per se about this location. We would plan to go to the other locations in New York State and ask for the same variance as well. We just haven't presented in front of those boards and gotten there yet. So the intent isn't for this to be a unique facility in that regard. The intent would be to have all these buildings be this one, this variance. At the time of presenting those buildings to those respective boards, it just wasn't something that we included at that point.
Okay. Have you done any analysis on the storage of lithium-ion batteries? You know, when you get, we've all seen all the case studies on those type of devices and things that happen because of impacts and even random thermal runaway events. How does that interface with your facility versus the amount of that and that's occurring in these places?
Yeah, so we've talked about it and kind of qualitatively addressed it. The main approach that we've kind of settled on is there are going to be products with batteries. The building will have somewhere between or kind of on average 25 million products, so individual products. It's just right, those products are going to have batteries. Some of them will, some of them won't. The lithium-ion batteries and the concerns on lithium-ion battery thermal runaway or damaged batteries that cause fires as just that, an ignition source. But these products are fairly small in comparison to relative to what else you can buy in, let's say, the industry. So products in this building are usually below a size of 18 inches on a side. So 18 by 18 by 18 inches is the largest product you see in this building. Anything larger goes to another building in their network to be fulfilled from those locations. So they're limiting the size, but there will be products with lithium-ion batteries. We feel that those products are generally going to be the ignition source, if anything, but they're not going to drive the overall size of the fire. So in our testing, we feel that what we've tested is a conservative fuel load. And what that looks like is it's the 60 ounces of flammable liquid, and the rest of the pod is filled with it's a polystyrene, a crystalline polystyrene cup, which is a plastic cup. And they use it in sprinkler tests. It's the standard UL plastic quantity. So we try to use the standard, and along with our testing, we try to use as many say standard approaches as we can for sprinkler testing. So the cup is filled throughout the rest of the pod. They're nested and then filled every kind of storage cavity is filled with 100% exposed unexpanded plastic. So we feel that fuel load captures any fuel load that we see conservatively in the building, along with the lithium-ion batteries. The difference with lithium-ion batteries is that we do think that is a plausible ignition source to start the fire. But again, it's not going to drive the overall fire size beyond what we've tested.
Okay. Yeah, lithium ion is the codes have been working to try to get caught up with the way the technology has morphed. And I helped develop the emergency rulemaking for energy storage systems. And so just from having to do a deep dive in that, considering the amount of scrutiny we've put on energy storage system, which puts lithium ion cells next to each other, and looking at what happens when one goes, lithium ion fire is not a typical fire. You know, the fire suppression system is going to be doing some smoke control, but that lithium ion is going to run until its energy is depleted. So more of a question on has a facility has 25 million products and may have a lot of small lithium ion batteries, but a chain reaction of a tote filled with them and not being able to suppress it and put the fire out, but it's going to end up having to burn itself out. Has that been considered in your other facilities? Or has it really not proven itself to be an issue?
Yeah, it's the second one. I'm not, I'll say I'm not privy to all of the fire events in these buildings, but I would say we haven't been told that it's been proven otherwise, right? So
okay,
I'm not aware of a case where a lithium-ion battery has caused that type of chain reaction. I think the design of the sprinkler system has worked, and it's a lot of water. So while we design at 9 at 30, which is about 1.4 GPM per square foot, that first sprinkler is operating closer to 120, 130 PSI until that next sprinkler comes on. And I think that conservatism in the testing has helped to really knock down fires, a few amount of sprinklers in those cases. So we haven't seen or haven't heard of a chain reaction of lithium-ion fires through products, or a product that had a lithium-ion battery that was, let's say, so large or so substantial a fuel load that the sprinkler water wasn't able to at least keep it in control.
Okay.
Well, and nobody's thinking about this one. The drive units, the robots do have lithium-ion batteries in them. They're a little bit larger. We haven't seen those be an issue as well. And there's no dedicated storage of batteries on site to support those. So if those batteries go bad or they have to replace them, those drive units get marked for removal. They have a storage cage to help maintain those drive units. The most likely item that needs to be maintained are the wheels. They're constantly running, so the wheels have to be maintained or swapped out. But there's no stockpile or shelf of spare batteries. Those get shipped out of the building. And we view the drive units the same way. They're potentially ignition source, but not the driving size of the fire.
Great, thanks for that.
So one more, I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but just to get back to the maximum allowable quantities of flammable liquids. Approximately how much over the code allowed amount are you? Like I'm trying to find a comparison to what's allowed. You say what you're proposing, but I can't find what's allowed.
The answer is a lot. So it's on page 2 of Exhibit B. At the bottom, those numbers are request 1B, 1C, 2, 480 gallons, and request 3As are allowed to go to the fire. So the very bottom section of that table on the left, those are the code.
Right.
Code allowed. And those are taking, that would be the maximum allowed. Those are taking the increase for, they start at 120, the increase for sprinkler systems to 240, and then for cabinets to 40. So that would be the maximum allowable quantity with those increases. If you were to store restrictively, you can put all 480 gallons right in one. If you fit it in a storage cabinet. We're not proposing, you see that class 1A, we're not proposing storing any 1A.
So pretty much any materials that are in here for picking by the robots, these are all ORMs that ship out on regular Amazon type trucks or mail trucks. These are not anything regulated by DOT hazmat regulations and shipped with special care.
The answer is yes. I don't know 100% on the DOT, but the products that come into the building are consumer packaging, right? So anything you could go and buy at a drugstore or any store, right? Those are the types of products that would largely be shipped out of here, fulfilled out of here, and they're being fulfilled in the same manner. So the products that go out of this building are, they're typically packaged. Some aren't packaged in like a box that would be mailed to your house. But there's a split of the majority of the products going out have been, they say, fulfilled for a customer order. So it has a label and it's going to somebody. Some of the products are in their consumer packaging to be shipped to another facility to be further sorted and packaged and sent to the customer. Nothing from this building would be put into a to go to someone's where it's all tractor trailer coming in and out. So I'm not sure if but I'm not sure about on the DOT side is if the overall size of how many are in that truck going out would require to be labeled. I'm not.
More so the overall size of the containers. They're all properly labeled. So if the fire department is to respond and they're inside the building, these materials are identifiable and the MSDS sheets are also acknowledging where the building, because you don't know which pod they're in. So it's just a generalized area of the building where that would apply to.
Yeah, so they have access to the MSDSs if they know what the product is, but it's not necessarily that, like you said, it's not, okay, this is in this area, we know that product is in that area. You need to know the product and then they can pull the MSDS for it. They have the MSDS, they're selling it. That answer your question?
But nothing in large enough quantities that it would be shipping in a hazmat type of vehicle with the hazmat type of placarding on it.
I believe so. They're the individual packages, and this is a little outside my area of expertise. But and individual packaging, if they're required to label, will be labeled. But there's nothing in large container 60 ounces, so there's nothing in 65-gallon drums or the IBCs that are 100 gallons or so. Nothing like that.
So will the building require an NFPA 704 diamond on it based on the quantities?
A lot of the times I see the symbol, it usually has like a Y in the middle, yield, quantity yield symbol. It's white interior, black stripe from the top, black stripe from the bottom. You usually see that in a lot of DOT applications then. Sorry, I don't know all the specifics here on the DOT side. But I know it's not important to, when it comes into the building, it doesn't play a part. But I think that that's a piece of this puzzle. So a lot of these products come in with that limited quantity diamond.
Then once they're in the building, they're still a limited quantity.
The size of the individual package.
But the quantity within the building, you're still within. Granting of the variance from 5,003 isn't going to result in unlimited quantities.
Correct.
Of hazardous materials now collectively exceeding any type of.
Yeah, so it would still be what we're asking limited to that maximum 49,500 based on the ounces per pot that you have, how many pots they have. So they have roughly 20,000 pots per floor. That's the area of the building's fairly large. But it wouldn't be unlimited storage of any hazardous materials, limited to just those class 1, B, some liquids and lower, corrosive carbon oxide, none of that. But building and then the overall quantity will be monitored or not exceed that 49,500. So if our understanding is if they're at that threshold and something comes into the building that goes above that threshold, it's routed to go. It's not stored.
Because some of those materials are not just a fire hazard, they're also a health hazard. So in the event that there needs to be an evacuation due to life safety outside of a fire condition, there's not a high quantity of storage and there's not some of those other categories that are subsequent to this section of code is what you're saying.
You're right. The issuance of the variance from this section of the code is not going to take away any of those other requirements. Okay.
Sandy from the board, unrelated to that, the history of some of these other buildings we got into and incidences, I thought I read somewhere that there were a maximum of 9 people within this caged area throughout the building, but you said in your initial description that it would be
On average, 4.
4 per floor.
Per floor. Okay. The 9 is probably coming from, so the floors are sometimes seen, there's 2 separate storage units.
Okay.
So, and like the maximum that you can have, I think 9 is a reasonable number, but for their, how they work regularly around the outside of the field to get to the next gate going. And now it's on average, right when you walk into the building, there's going to be 4 people.
On average, how many people are going to be outside of that 250 on that main floor?
The ground floor.
Yeah, on the ground floor. I was under the assumption that the 400, the 250 to 400 was actually in that area when I read this, but you're saying that there's more people that are affected by this 250 because of the way the building's laid out with conveyors.
Yeah, so I don't have the number exactly, but it depends on where the workstations are on the ground floor. So I wouldn't, so let's separate, I guess, the ground floor from levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the storage floors. Predominantly those people are within 250 feet. When you get to the ground floor, there are workstations across the entire floor. Now they are concentrated in certain areas. Those do tend to be towards the exterior of the building. But I'm not sure percentage of those that would be within 200 as opposed to 400. I don't think it's a large number of people because again, it's those central regions of the floor, and those are largely conveyance. Workstations are more outside the building. I would have to draw down building analysis there of where workstations are, see where the travel systems are, and that's part of the process of the project development and then the architect to ensure all the games have problem. But I need to look at and lay it out to give you an answer on what percentage of the expected employee count in between 250 and 400.
Would it help to mention the smoke reservoirs bigger on the first floor and we don't have storage?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the floor height is 27.7, I believe, first floor. Yeah, so we do have a 24-foot clear height. The challenge that we meet is on some of the platforms, they're about 14 foot. They're about 10 people on each of those platforms. There's 2 occupied platforms. So very good point, Grant. So the if you go back to the code section, it's 1017.2.2 for an increase from 250 to 400 if given some conditions. One of those is 24-foot clear height, the other one's 1 story, and the third is so on the vast majority of the ground floor, being that 24-foot clear height to accommodate or provide a smoke reservoir to keep the smoke above exiting. It's those 2 platforms that have about each that are at 14 foot and don't maintain that clearance. So we do see this in our modeling and our egress analysis that have much more available time to egress because you're still moving it above 6 feet above the finished floor for a much longer duration of time as opposed to the upper floor, which is relatively visibility quicker because they're
On those elevated platforms, are they cementitious product or are they grates in that first floor?
They're typically like some of them are concrete board, some of them are resin deck. So they're typically continuous. They're not moving great. They're continuous. Some of the stairs are. You have your platform and a little landing will be graded, but for the most part, there is a solid floor across your platforms. You have the needs that are either board concrete or that material.
And for the occupancy, and you're stating that there's about 1,800 employees at max in the facilities across that where you've been granted a variance. Is that still hold true? Is it still around that 1,800 or less?
Yes.
I saw in that smoke modeling, some areas that need further, further analysis at your page 58. Is that where it shows in black and the different levels? Is that in levels 2 through 5, or is that
Yeah.
even the ground floor?
For the most part, that's 2 through 5, 2 through 4. And the ground floor, if we look at what's on page 58, mark 58 of that report, is an example of how to color coding where those are. Go to figure 24, 5, 6. Emotional design fire or fire scenario 1. That's fire on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And those all look blank because that's 6 feet above the floor. There's no
okay.
So those are much better. Relatively speaking, if we go to page 71, 70 and 71. That's a fire scenario on 2, 3, or 4. Again, they're identical footprints. So group them together. That's where you start to see some of the green accumulate. In this case, top left hand corner. So looking at page or figure 35. The fire in the scenario is in the top left corner. And what you see is the smoke hits the ceiling, spreads out, starts to spread out across the building. When it hits another wall, hits anything in the way, it kind of banks under, turns under, and that's when you start to see that at 6 feet above the finished floor. So in this image, there's smoke above head height towards the corner, but when it gets to the bottom left-hand corner, it starts to turn under. That's where it affects visibility. So you're seeing some reduction there below 10 meters, but still above 4 meters. That's that visibility coming out there. That's shown to continue if you were in that area. Now, we account for this in modeling is to take an exit from the top left corner unavailable. So in our egress modeling, we're saying occupant can't go to that stair. It won't be open right away from that stair. And then as well as the exit stair in the bottom left corner. We're not anticipating occupants to move into that corner to walk into a stair. There are 7 other stairs on the other side of the building that would be less affected or not affected by smoke. So our assumption is that the occupants won't stand in a condition that is actively getting worse. They'll actually move out of that condition. They also won't walk into that condition if they turn the other way, and that's clear. Well, there's less, there's smoke above maybe, but it's clear for them to walk. We assume they walk that way. So we make 2 stairs unavailable in the bottom to account for the fire location and one that's, I'll say, it's kind of smoke accumulation. Figure 70 or figure 35 is at the time of egress. This is the time that we estimated everybody to get into the stair. And then on the next page, figure 36 is at 1200 seconds, so that's at 20 minutes. That's the end of the model. We run most of the models out to 20 minutes. The understanding that usually egress is to that point, and then the department will be arriving around that time. So give an indication of what's happening after the egress has completed, and also what the fire department might expect when they come. Understanding that this is a fairly conservative, right? We're assuming that the plastic is burning. We assume that the fire, it grows, the sprinklers activate, and it knocks down to about 20%. And the testing that we've seen, it knocks down to probably something close to 5% of the total size. So it's still producing smoke in this analysis, trying to be conservative with both time to compare and not really need.
Can you talk a little bit more about deterring the occupants? You mentioned that. So like, let's say there was an incident on floor 2 and you don't want those occupants on 3, 4, 5 going down that stairwell. How are you deterring that?
Yeah, so if the fire is on level 2.
Yeah, let's say if any of the levels where there are occupants above it if there's an incident and we have this accumulation of smoke in that section of the stairwell.
Yep.
Where they might come out of that door into that area. So how are you determining?
So we still assume that the stair is a safe enclosure, right? There's not smoke accumulation in the stair. For one reason, the doors are closed, for the most part. We don't assume that the people on level 2 are using the doors near this, near the smoke. And then also the stairs are pressurized, so it's gonna help prevent smoke infiltrating into the stair. But to stop someone from levels 3, 4, or 5 from going down that stair, we don't prohibit that in our modeling. Because we assume again that the stair is clear, so they would continue down and just, we don't expect them to exit on level 2, they continue down to level 1. But then all the stairs do have exterior access, so once you're in the stair, you're going down to the ground floor and then out of the building. You're not going back into the building. So that's the assumption, right? If someone on level 5 is getting into the stair, there's smoke at that stair door on level 2.
Right.
They should be unaffected and be able to use that stair to come out. The other, I mentioned this book, stair pressures in our, so that would help keep out the stair.
But if the leader of the pack is coming down those stairs and they're at level 2, not realizing they're at level 2, they could still open that door. Okay, but I was curious when you said they're trying to deter them away from it. I wasn't sure how you were doing that.
So that's only in the model.
Okay.
Right? So in real life, there's nothing to stop them from opening that
Right.
door on level 2, even if there's some, if there's physical piece.
May I revisit one of your questions? Okay. You asked, do we need a diamond on the building? I didn't have a good answer for you right away, but I might have a better one. Thinking about that from experience with other clients that deal with hazmats and other clients that just want to store up to what is a prescriptive MAQ in their building. Say they have new product and then it's 100 gallons. Can we store it here? I think in those situations, the answer is yes. It's up to your MAQ, control your MAQ. Packages need to be labeled accordingly based on what's inside of them, but I don't think your building would need a placard. I think the ask is the same here. We're saying kind of like redefining what the MAQ is. Instead of in a control area, it's per pod. So I was thinking, okay, if fire department personnel ran in there, do they need to be aware of an extra hazard in that fire from a combustible flammable liquid? And it turns out to be about 0.052 gallons per square foot. And I multiplied that by 900 square feet, because that's the demand area of this sprinkler system design. That's 46 gallons. MAQ with just a sprinkler increase goes up to 240. So I would think it's kind of looking at that in the same vein of below the MAQ, do we need to put a diamond on the building? Probably not prescriptively. Then again, we could. I don't think there's anything stopping us.
Would the fire chief prefer that?
Yeah, we're not against it.
Yes, that's good. And no corrosive material.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's I guess from my perspective, it's more of an increase if you're to the products that could be in there, but it's not an increase of overall fire hazard. So we're showing the sprinkler system, so it's impressive.
So-
Signing, if that helps.
If we could put a condition on your approval, if we granted that you're volunteering to add the NFPA 704 signage, although it's not required based on your assumed quantities that would be stored.
Yeah. You can do that and figure out where exactly it's going. Like it's every door.
Usually
right every access door. So
yeah.
if every access door out here around the perimeter of the ground floor, be a problem. They're all typically the same color and they have markings. On site.
Okay.
It's a good question.
This is Jeff. So you talk us through, you've written extensively when dealing with the MAQ with a mercantile comparison and trying to make, it looks like make the distinction that although you're an S1, that there are some ways in which the occupant's going to function similar to a mercantile, that you have product that's available and then will be sold. Talk us through your analysis on that.
Yeah, so the comparison to mercantile, just that, it's a comparison. Why we brought it up and thought that was important to bring up. When we started looking at this, we saw the numbers and said, what is being asked is far exceedance of what the code allows typically, so that 120 to 480 gallons. But we honed in on the mercantile requirements because that allows for a much larger increase beyond those normal MAQs. So I think it starts at 15,000 gallons, and then there's an area allowance that increases that twofold. If you have, I think it's every 1,000 square feet above 50,000 square feet. So you can go from 15,000 gallons to 30,000 gallons. And there's no significant increase in your sprinkler protection, kind of the changes to those occupancies. And then we started also talking about, and there's even a difference of those occupancies are typically open to the public. So you have the people in that building can be considered unfamiliar with the building and unfamiliar with those surroundings. So that was an interesting thing, and we did more research on it. Ultimately found that the mercantile exceptions in the code are permitted to essentially have those products on hand to sell, right? The business needs it. And that's the supporting factor for that, right? There's no other reasons that we could find when we went through the base International Building Code, which the New York State Building Code is based on, to say, why is this increase from 240 or 480 to 30,000 allowed? It's really based on a business need to sell these products, to have them on hand, and sell them to the consumers coming in. And so we thought that comparison was useful. And then when you start thinking about our building here, it's a storage warehouse, but it's really a fulfillment center, right? So these are products that are similar to what you find in a mercantile occupancy. They're not bulk packaged or anything like that, right? It's a package that you would buy if you were an individual consumer. So the product types align really closely. What mercantile does is it does limit your storage heights and some of your container types and some of your sprinkler protections in those areas, especially for displays, for how to protect that. So we try to approach it in a similar manner to say we're going to limit the types of products. So in this case, it's only flammable liquids, class 1B and lower. We also have a sprinkler system that's been tested to show that it can protect it. Not just going into a building with a sprinkler system that is designed for that occupancy before the flammable liquids. In terms of the container types, we aren't limiting container types. We tested a plastic container, which would be the most hazardous. So we would allow for any container, either plastic, glass, metallic, any non-metallic. So we feel that we tested the most challenging container type. But we really use that as a comparison to show that the code does allow for an increase in MAQ and drastically above what you might see in a normal S1, I'll say, occupancy, where that limit is 240, but then a mercantile could have 30,000 gallons. And typically those sprinkler systems aren't necessarily designed for those, right? It's designed for the greater hazard of that mercantile. And then when we started talking through it more and more, another kind of strength of the design of this building is that limited density and the dispersion of the flammable liquids throughout the floor. There's no backup house storage, right, for inventory replenishment. So we thought that was a good comparison to say, are we addressing that concern of aggregated or accumulated products? And then that last one, which I mentioned before, is you could have anybody go into a mercantile occupancy and they have flammable liquids, in those buildings up to a significant quantity. They're not familiar with your building, or with that building rather, and they may not be familiar with how to evacuate where the doors are. They're probably going to go in and they came in. If they exit immediately or not, it's unknown. We know in this building and with this tenant, that occupants leave pretty quickly. We do include a hesitation time in our egress calculations of 60 seconds for occupants to hear and interpret the alarm and then start to leave. And then we also include a 50% safety factor on the travel distance. So what our egress model gives us is the time from when the occupants start to move to when they get into the stair. We take that duration and include a 50% safety factor on there to account for it's the bucket of human behavior, right? So if you're leaving and somebody you're working next to is a little bit behind you, you're probably going to wait for them, especially if you don't see the fire, right? If there's no immediate environmental cue for this, you're probably going to wait a little bit, and that 50% is trying to capture that human behavior. In a mercantile occupancy, if you walk into one of these larger box stores, I think you'd find that a lot of people hesitate a lot longer. They don't necessarily know where they're going, so that was another point of comparison to say, if this increase in MAQ beyond up into I'll say a meaningful number of 30,000 gallons does have a lot of other considerations there that we feel our building is addressing and covering from a safety and life safety.
When these materials arrive, they're moved from the bulk delivery vehicle into the pods manually? Is that a person does that? So a person is inventorying what's coming off a truck and indicating which pod it goes in, and then the pod gets sent off into storage? Is that the function? Or do the pods come preloaded?
Yeah. So some of the pods will come preloaded at the start of the building, right? So to get product into the building, sometimes products are shipped to or pods full of products are shipped to the building. That would be, if the building is functioning, that would be odd for that to happen, is my understanding. So once it's operating and fully operating at 100%, the process would be a truck pulls up, an employee brings the products off, and then they go through a process that's referred to as decanting, where products are removed from any type of carton. It's removed from any packaging down to what you would sell it in, and that's placed in typically a tote. There's a plastic tote that is used throughout the building, many of them. That plastic tote is then conveyed upstairs. It gets routed to a stowing location, and then another employee takes it out. And along the way, there are scans to track, what it is, where it is, how many, all that type of stuff. But when it gets upstairs, it's taken out of the tote, scanned, and then put into a pod manually. Yep.
Okay. So would there be opportunity, if we're talking about exceeding limits, that if either a particular bin or a particular pod kind of hits a threshold, there would be an opportunity for that pod or that bin to be marked just with a visual marker that this contains a certain class of material. And again, we're kind of pushing into a boundary, and then granted, I know it's not, that's not required in mercantile occupancies, because I think the argument there is that it's readily apparent what it is. You can see the packaging, you can see what it is, but now you're going to put this potentially in a vessel that you don't know what it is or where it is. And so that's the same premise between like the DOT putting a mark on a truck. You don't know what's in there. And so you have to have some other reference. And so if there's a method, has it been considered of a method of marking, whether a pod or a bin, color indicator, something that could be standardized to alert occupants and emergency personnel of what's in that one? I know it moves around the building, but it'd be helpful if you saw a red tote. Oh, red tote contains, or a yellow tote contains class 3, whatever. Some sort of indicator that would give someone familiar or unfamiliar a clue.
With my understanding of their operations, I think that would be difficult because they're not, I believe employees are going to be trained, right, to handle these materials and handle all materials that way. As they come in, the quantity of, so let's talk about the first part and then we'll talk about the pods. So quantity of totes in the building is large. Everything around in a tote, it's a standard size, it's easy to move, easy to stack. All those sorts of concerns and considerations. My concern would be that I think they'd end up just marking every single tote. right? To say, once you put a sticker on it or have a marking on it, how do you take that off? And that process would be pretty large burden to try to track what totes had flammable liquids in it. For the pods, the same type of deal where when an employee interacts with the pod, they're really taking one product at a time and putting the products first come, first serve. And there's a bunch of, right, they obviously mandate or document or oversee and manage how efficient you are at picking and stowing, and to add in another step, I think would be a challenge into that process to then mark that pod a certain way. And then, if you mark it on one side, we have to mark it on all four sides, because when you interact with the pod, you only see one side of the four sides, right? And you're filling it up, and how many of the products you can fit in that pod, depending on how full or empty it is, right? You're filling it up, and then it's going away, and you're going to the next pod. So I think the marking of totes or pods would be challenging. I do know that they intend to provide additional training on how to handle these, either in a undamaged or a damaged state, right? So now, because there are flammable liquids and there are hazardous materials, there has to be some other considerations for, okay, if this container spilled, you don't know what that is. You have to then safely and appropriately clean that up. And I think the assumption there would be that it is a flammable liquid. You would have to assume that it's a flammable liquid until you can prove that it isn't.
To kind of piggyback on what he was talking about. So when a shipment arrives to the building, are we making an assumption that, this is coming from one vendor, or is this coming from other facilities, or is it a combination of? So when a tote or a package, or, can we assume that there's probably 20 of these totes of the same product coming out to be dispersed into the pods? I think that's kind of what I'm looking for clarification on, because there possibly a gap right there.
Yeah, so the answer is there could be an accumulation there.
Okay.
I've tried to account for that. Let me walk kind of back through the process. The vast majority, like high 90%, these products are coming from other buildings in their network, so they're not receiving shipments directly from vendors. Okay. It's coming from another site that received those from vendors, and they've sorted it and said, all right, these products need to go to that building. And the same with their network, right? Any building in their network, they're giving us pre-sorting to get this building, so that they know what products are going to the building already and what that mixture is. They don't want to send, like a tiny pallet of products and say, well, we don't need all those. Some of those need to go somewhere else. So there's that pre-sorting step. But your next question, yeah, it could be a pallet of these products. We are looking at that to ensure that the sprinkler protection in that area is adequate. Right, so they have an area that they, for the most part, products are removed from pallets by hand on a conveyor that's shoved into the trailer. In cases of products or container products are put onto a conveyor and moved out, and then manually pick out of those and put it in totes. They do remove pallet loads at times, and our assumption is that pallet could be one pallet from a conservative standpoint. It's unlikely, is what we're being told, but unlikely is a no, right? So we assume that it could be one product. So there is an area in the inbound dock that we're analyzing to make sure that what reasonably could be there will be protected by the server system. Now, if our analysis finds that the answer to that is no, it would have to be amended or adjusted to account for that potential accumulation in that area, where you could have, we're trying to settle on what number that is. Is it 5 pallets or is it 10 pallets? Where how much space is there? Because pallets sitting there, product doesn't support their business, so they're incentivized to break that down. You get that storage field, and once it's in the storage field, it can be moved to a customer. But I guess the direct answer is yes, you could have an accumulation of single product into on pallets. Our design would be to make sure that hazard is appropriately protected by the sprinkler system.
Because that's where the primary steel members are going to pay, basically. That's kind of my point. You're bringing in a bulk, although it's not all it'd be 55-gallon drums, but it is concentrated in one area coming off of the truck. So you're looking at modeling to a certain amount of that product in that area of the offloading.
Yeah, and we, Aaron has this continue to work with it, making that done, and that's the vision of steel. One advantage we do have in that area is on the ground floor, so the ceiling heights are quite a bit larger, so about 28 feet, I think 27 to the other side of the deck, and they're only going to store one high of those pallets, right? So they don't come into the building and then stack up 2 or 3 or 4. It's always going to be just one high. So there is that is that's a good thing, right? It's one high pallets, so it's not stacked 2 or 4 high. You're not getting pushed with steel members. Your ceiling height is great in that area, so you listen to turn on. Yes, we are looking at that picture. That is.
This is Jackie from the board. So since these products move around place to place, when designing the building for compliance with Section 906 of the Fire Code for portable fire extinguishers, are you going to assume that anywhere on the picking floor area could be an area where the flammable and combustible liquids could be stored, and you're going to plan for the most restrictive of location and travel distance for portable fire extinguishers? Because it says that the FSF members here are responsible for providing fire suppression of incipient fires. So that means that not everybody's leaving, right? That there may be an FSF member who stays behind to try and minimize the situation before it escalates.
Yes, that's a good point. So the fire safety force will stay, and they're trained to stay. So they will stay. They'll be trained to use fire extinguishers, trained to respond to that fire and help locate the fire. It's probably a judgment call on what it's a fire is and what they do and how they handle that. The question of fire extinguishers is if you would provide appropriate fire extinguisher and spacing based on the flammable being present. We don't know where those would be limited to.
Right.
So not sure what that implication is on.
It's 75 feet versus 50 feet of spacing, but in a facility of this size, that can result in a considerable quantity increase of fire extinguishers, which also goes hand in hand with the maintenance of that quantity of fire extinguishers. So I don't know if the answer would be to just assume that the Class B travel distances should be utilized, or if it should be at the discretion of the fire code official having jurisdiction at this facility. That's why I was asking if any thought had been given into that yet.
It's a really good question. I would hope that any of the talking work with the local fire department. My initial thought is you probably want to put those at least separated at 50 foot, at least at the surrounding areas of the storage field where occupants, right? If somebody on the fire safety, so how they have typically done that is they separate the floor into quarters, identify manager and employee during every shift. So on your floor, you have a certain number of people who are trained, right? If they were to access the floor where likely fire or most likely location for a fire, they would have access to extinguisher and appropriate extinguisher on that spacing. So maybe there's a way to lay it out where it's, you know, that fire clearing center of the field probably isn't being used. That may be difficult to find, but more accessible location, perimeter of the field at the fence line, or at the doors or the gates rather to the storage field for those additional activity might be.
I've had two types of feedback from actual live buildings on this one. First is that when you put fire extinguishers in the field and you want to locate their columns so they can kind of be tucked in and they don't get hit by pods moving back and forth, it becomes a challenge to one, make sure they don't get hit over time. Two, to find them, maintain, and inspect them. It's always seen as a headache from their perspective. Go into the field, find the extinguisher, inspect it, keep logs. Like, granted, the field shouldn't have that many people in them. You shouldn't be going into the field to find the fire extinguisher in the first place. You should be on the perimeter. That's where most.
I thought fire safety likely be coming from the outside area, so we need to get to the storage field, so we can ensure that extinguisher on that spacing is provided at the location. That seems to make sense.
So we may be granting a variance from section 906 then also, right? Because you're not even saying that you're going to be able to comply with the 75 feet for A's, or you do comply with that?
Yeah, let me back up. We do comply with the 75 feet for A's.
Okay.
And
It's just
we could comply
50 for B that you're not sure.
Oh, we could, cover this, right? We can't meet that, from a,
But practically, it doesn't really.
yeah, that's what I was, yes, that was the question I was answering was, or I thought I was answering was the practically, right? If you just write it all out, useful, but the answer is yes, we can provide, we do provide the 75 foot spacing typically throughout the entire building, and we can also do.
I'm just thinking from a plan review point of view, like, I wouldn't be sure if I would be looking at this as a class A or a class B travel distance, since we don't know what the commodities are and where they are. So as part of our decision, I'd like to have a finding that we looked at it from one way or the other, just so that it's clear. So based on what you're saying, we should be looking at it to meet 906 in relation to class A or to class B travel distance.
Like for one point of view out there, it's the goal of the fire testing plan possible with this was to make sure that we don't really have a fire hazard.
0.25 cubic inches of depth is really not that much either when you talk about plywood table at 906. So that's why, again,
Well,
practically.
Yeah. That's where you're coming from. I don't think it would hurt to squeeze in that spacing around the perimeter.
I would have to look at the code section, to be honest, a little closer and read it and answer your question directly. I could say either way, if it's class A or class B that we're looking at, we can provide that spacing, provide that with the client spacing throughout the building. Practical standpoint, I would want to look at that section specifically and just read it again. Understand what we're.
So what if we made an affirmative statement on the plans during plan review of how the exit or of how the extinguisher separation distances were designed? Yeah, would that be fair? Just so that it's not a gray area of one person trying to determine how it should or shouldn't be. And then you're not back here again in 6 months because you didn't have the right separation of your fire extinguishers.
So life safety plans that will address.
I see, this is Jeff again, going back to the material. I think I saw somewhere that you're proposing to have a limit of 12,375 gallons on each floor. You want, that's what you're asking?
Yeah, the ask is for the total per building, so it would be that number times 4 for the 4 storage floors on an approximate value. That would be the 12,375 gallons per floor because of the number of pods per floor. So that would be the max that we would anticipate. That's the intent would be to have a total building MAQ as opposed to the per floor. But where we're getting that 12,375 is 49,500 for storage floors.
So that 49,000 could end up on one floor?
It shouldn't. right? Because they're going to be put on into a pod. So the estimate, right, is that there wouldn't ever be any more than 12,375 per floor, because that's how much you could have in a pod. And there's no storage outside of pods on that floor. So the effect of, let's say, every single pod was full on a given floor, and you brought another tote up to that floor, that would exceed that limit, but it would be immediately kind of rejected and rerouted to another floor because there's nowhere to put it. And it's along the lines of how many pods and how many pods are full of products. It would be unlikely that you'd have every pod at 100% because you're constantly picking and stowing and products are moving. So, to have 20,000 pods be full at capacity would be unlikely. But we felt that was a conservative case to look at, right? Because that's what we're asking. It could happen.
Okay, because it also, I think you're limiting each pod to 60 ounces of liquid, so half a gallon per pod.
Yep, exactly. Just under half a gallon, and that's the limit. So as products are stowed into a pod, you couldn't exceed 60 ounces.
And that's not per tote, that's per pod, which is a collection of totes.
Good question. So there are two pod types. I should have mentioned this before. So the first pod type, and that's what we're looking for the flammable liquids in, is a metal frame with basically a fabric material stretched over it. That's called an H pod or a fabric pod. That's on page 7 of the report. So in that case, that's just the pod. So it has storage cubbies or bins along the height of 3 by 3 by 8.5 roughly. That's a fabric pod, and that's what we did our testing on for flammable liquids. On the next page, on page 8, are the tote pods, and that's the example of when a pod is a collection of totes. That we don't currently have testing for, so we're not proposing to store flammable liquids in that tote type. There's tenant may decide to store the fabric pods from the previous stage with flammable liquids, or in a tote pod without. That's what we're asking for today.
And those are the totes that are similar to the ones coming off the truck.
Yes, there are some slight differences, but for the most part, there's about 2 to 3 types of totes, but they're all relatively the same size. Some are different colors, some are different models, some of them nest differently, but you can think of them all roughly the same size. They're coming off.
The pod coming from the truck is not the pod that's going to go into, or the tote, that tote is not going to be taken out of the truck and put into that particular pod.
So this system, tote comes off the truck, and then goes upstairs, and then typically dumps into another tote. And put it into a pod. That's when it's those parts not going directly into the field. They may do that ultimately if they can figure out how to sort and make everything. The pods the totes are all very similar. They're all the same plastic. The designs are a little bit different to make up as much space as they can. So in this picture, you'll see they're very rectangular. Most of their other totes are travel turtle where they come in, but that extra volume so they can store maybe one product form over the 20,000 per floor makes a difference. So they're trying to optimization, try to optimize that for the most part. They're all very similar size and height. Well, today they don't do that. They could straight off the truck, if they up there, just put it in one.
So whether it's a fabric pod, a dense tote pod, or a Hercules dense tote pod, it would be limited to 60 ounces of flammable liquids for that configuration.
So only the fabric pod. Right?
So only the fabric pod is going to have flammable material.
Right. There wouldn't be a mix. The building would be either fabric pods or tote pods, either dense tote pods or Hercules dense tote pods, because we haven't done that testing yet to support it. So only fabric pods would have the 60 ounces, and then if they decided to use the tote pod, the tote pod wouldn't at this point have flammable liquids approved for storage.
That's pretty specific. So if we're gonna entertain giving a variance on it, it's gonna be very specific. And so it's not, if they're gonna change storage at that point to a different type of pod, they're not gonna get that forgiveness, so to speak. As long as
Yep.
that's understood, that if that's what's being proposed, that's what the testing is based on, that's the justification, that's going to be clearly stated as a restriction.
And that's how we've written our report and communicated with them as well, is this is what we can support. And that's what this report has written to justify. So they're understanding that if that changes, or if the pod changes, or if there's a different pod in a couple of years and they decide to use that this report has to be revisited entirely. Yes, that's understood, and it's a very specific answer for that, for the pods.
Thank you.
Barbara, do we still have people online?
We have the code enforcement.
It disappeared off the screen.
Yeah, we have nothing on the screen. We only have,
Everybody.
I think the screen timed out.
Okay.
Probably because nothing was changing over there.
No,
That's right.
it was, it's not connection for a minute. Maybe that's why.
Speaker view.
Chairman, could I request a brief recess just for 5 or 10 minutes to stretch my legs and take a break?
yeah, yep. I was just gonna ask if there were any other comments from anyone online or, somebody else.
Oh, if I could, good afternoon. Carmen.
Do you want to take a break, Jeff? Or do you want to wait until deliberation?
I defer to you, Chairman, whatever you say.
What's that? Okay. I'd like to open it up to anyone else that's online for any comment.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, it's Carmen Senacropi. I'm the Town of Florida Building Inspector. My license is Charlie Edward 1005228. I live at 105 Barber Lane, Amsterdam, New York, 12010. Just a brief comment here concerning the town situation. Recently, I had a conversation with the Town of Florida Supervisor, Eric Mead, and we are both currently in support of the project to be built in our town of Florida. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Carmen. And we did also include copies of letters.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I was just mentioning that we included in the filing some copies of letters of support from people from the county and town. But thank you, Carmen. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you, and good luck.
Do we have any other questions from the board? Okay, at this time, the board will deliberate. And I'll ask everyone to leave the room, and you will call you back in. I'd like to go off the record. Thank you for your patience again. We're back from deliberation and regards to petition 2025-0324. I'll read our motion for negative declaration for short EAF for Board of Review. That the Board of Review find and determine that the issuance of a variance in petition 2025-0324 will not have a significant environmental impact Will not have a significant adverse effect on any significant fish or wildlife habitat, scenic resource or statewide significance, important agricultural land or area included in an approved local waterfront revitalization program. And number two, that the Department of State be authorized to sign and deliver on behalf of the Board of Review and the Department of State, the State Environmental Quality Review Act short environmental assessment form indicating that no or small impact may occur in response to each question in part two of the form and determining in part three of the form that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. I have a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion.
I have a second. Now I'll poll the board. Jackie Coons.
Aye.
Derek Berenger.
Aye.
Laura Ryder.
Aye.
Jeff Hindeleiter.
Aye.
And I, Andy Ellis, Chair, aye. And let the record show we have 5 ayes, 0 nays. Nature of the grievance and relief sought. This petition pertains to a variance in connection with the proposed development of a new e-commerce storage and distribution center for consumer products. Occupancy group S1, moderate hazard storage with a footprint of approximately 600,000, sorry. Need to, 1 second. I'm gonna zoom in on this. Sorry about that. Moderate hazard storage with a footprint of approximately 652,060 square feet, 5 stories in height for a total area of approximately 3,232,740 square feet. Construction type 1A, fire resistant with automatic sprinkler protection throughout and located at New York State Route 5S, tax map 54-1-36, Town of Florida, New York 12010, County of Montgomery, State of New York. The petitioner is seeking relief from 19 NYCRR Part 1221 of the Building Code of New York State, Section 602.1 and Table 601, which states building and structures erected or to be erected, altered, or extended in height or area shall be classified in one of the 5 construction types defined in section 602.2 through 602.5. The building element shall have a fire resistant rating not less than that specified in table 601, and the interior walls shall have a fire resistant rating not less than that specified in table 602. We're required to have a fire resistance rating by table 601. The building elements shall comply with the applicable provisions of section 703.2. Projection of openings, ducts, and air transfer openings in the building element shall not be required unless required by other provisions of this code. Petitioner is seeking relief to allow the use of an alternative method of fireproofing steel framing. We have 19 NYCRR Part 1221, 2020 Building Code of New York State, Section 1017.2, and Table 1017.2/19 NYCRR Part 1225, 2020 Fire Code of New York State, Section 1017.2 and Table 1017.2, which states exit access travel distance shall not exceed the values given in Table 1017.2. Table 1017.2 provides a required exit access travel distance for an S1 occupancy with sprinkler system to be a maximum of 250 feet. Petitioner requests relief from an existing or from an exit access travel distance of 250, maximum to be 400 feet. 19 NYCRR Part 1225, the Fire Code of New York State, Section 5003, .1.1 maximum allowable quantity per control area, which states the maximum allowable quantity per control area shall be specified in tables 5003.1.11 through 503.11 to 4. The petitioner requests to allow an increased maximum allowable quantities MAQ for the flammable and combustible liquids. Upon the application of BMG Albany LLC and upon taking testimony and hearing argument thereon at a duly noted hearing before the Capital Region Albany Board of Review, this hearing was held via video conference call WebEx at the following location: 1 Commerce Plaza, 99 Washington Avenue, Conference Room 505, Albany, New York, on May 21st, 2025. And upon all papers in this matter, the board makes the following determination. Our findings of facts. Number 1, petitioner refers to the construction and operation of an e-commerce storage and fulfillment facility along New York State Route 5S in the town of Florida, County of Montgomery, tax parcel 54-1-36 that consists of approximately 137 acres of land. Number 2, the project will include construction of an approximately 3,232,740 square foot facility comprised of a ground floor with a footprint of approximately 652,060 square feet and 4 elevated levels with identical footprint of approximately 608,000 square feet. Number 3, the facility will be dedicated primarily to the storage and distribution of class 1 through 4 and group A plastic commodities and limited quantities of flammable class 1B, 1C, and no class 1A and combustible liquids class 2, class 3A, and class 3B. Number 4, the facility will be constructed primarily of concrete and steel with an insulated metal panel facade above the second story, which will comply with the requirements for type 1A construction of the 2020 Building Code in New York State and 2020 Building Code in New York State. Number 5, the exterior walls and floor slabs of the building will meet the prescriptive fire resistance rating for type 1A construction as per 2020 Building Code in New York State. But the supporting structure of the floor assembly will be protected by alternative design presented in the performance-based design analysis. And the construction components will meet the requirements for non-combustible construction. Number 6, the facility will be protected by an automatic sprinkler system throughout per the 2020 Building Code in New York State. The sprinkler system throughout the facility will be designed to provide adequate protection to ensure the structure of the facility does not reach a critical temperature for a minimum duration of 3 hours to meet the intent of type 1A construction per table 601 of the 2020 Building Code in New York State, and will provide a higher discharge density than required to address the potential hazard. Example, sprinkler discharge pressure of 30 psi, even where full-scale testing showed effective suppression at 22 psi. Number 7, for the reliability, redundancy of the sprinkler system, water supply to ensure the successful operation of the system for a duration of 3 hours, which is the maximum fire resistant rating required by type 1A construction per table 601, 2020 Building Code in New York. The petitioner proposes a dedicated water supply in the second independent and redundant water supply to decrease the likelihood of water supply impairment. The sprinkler system will be fed by 2 independent size fire pumps, 2 redundant water distribution loops, and 1 external underground loop and 1 internal above ground loop. Number 8, the facility proposes to use an on-site water storage tank, 1 fire pump for 1 supply, and a connection to the public utility, and another fire pump as to a second supply for the sprinkler system. On-site water storage tanks will be sized as needed to supply the sprinkler system for a duration of not less than 3 hours, including post-drain. Number 9, the proposed sprinkler solution will be provided at all points of the structure to ensure that the facility is protected in accordance with type 1A construction. These areas include the main warehouse areas on each floor, as well as the structure within the stair towers and above the drop ceiling in the main office and remote office, remote bathrooms, and break rooms. Number 10, the facility will also utilize an occupant notification system achieving full audible coverage, together with associate training on emergency evacuation procedures, a smoke exhaust system, a linear heat detection system, and a fire command center consistent with the Uniform Code Section 911 requirement. Number 11, the flammable plus combustible FC liquids in the facility would be packed for retail in small, not to exceed 16-ounce plastic, glass, or metal containers. Will include only miscible Class 1B, 1C flammable liquids and miscible or non-miscible Class 2, 3A, and 3B combustible liquids. Class 1A flammable liquids will not be stored at the facility. Tenant utilizes a product classification database to ensure that Class 1A liquids will not even be transported to the site. And the same technology is used to regulate container size placement of FC liquids throughout the storage field to ensure storage density is consistent with the requirements of the BBDA. Number 12, the proposed density of the FC liquid storage throughout the facility would be limited on elevated floors to 60 ounces of FC liquid in a single fabric pod, which amounts to 6.7 ounces of FC liquids per square foot and a maximum of 12,375 gallons on each floor based on the number of pods. Number 13, the facility will utilize the tenant's unique and proprietary method of pod storage with robotic retrieval of products from the central storage field up each elevated level to the perimeter of each floor, where the manual and automatic picking operations remove the product from the storage. Number 14, facility will have a design capacity for approximately 6,000 to 7,000 people. However, tenant expects to have no more than 1,800 people in the facility at any one time. Number 15, no members of the general public will be allowed in the facility. The tenant maintains and enforces a detailed safety program to ensure employees are properly prepared for emergency situation. Conclusion of law. In view of the above findings and upon taking testimony and hearing argument thereon at a duly noted hearing before the Capital Region Albany Board of Review, the board finds that the proposed variance will not substantially adversely affect the law's provision for health, safety, and security. Strict compliance with the code would entail would be unnecessary in light of alternatives which, without a loss of level of safety, achieve the intended objective of the code. Wherefore it is determined that the application for the variance from NY CRR Part 1221, Section 602.1, Table 601, Section 1017.2, and Table 1017.2, and the 19 NY CRR Part 1225, Section 1017.2, and Table 1017.2, and Section 5003.1.1 be granted with the following conditions. Number 1, all conditions shall be implemented as described in the petition and listed in the finding of facts above. Number 2, that the facility will use extended coverage K 25.2 sprinklers as described in the petition with a response time index of below 50 meters per second to the half power, as well as listing as both a control mode density area and control mode special application sprinkler. Coverage shall satisfy coverage requirements for Class A plastic as described in the PDDA. The facility, number 3, the facility will utilize 2 independent water sources, each with its own pump. Number 4, separate fire loops to supply the sprinkler system and storage systems shall be provided. One loop will be installed underground outside the facility and the second loop be installed inside the facility. Each loop will be redundantly fed with separate connections to the water source. Number 5, the facility's water source will be sized to provide 3 hours of water to the facility fire sprinkler system and standpipe systems. Number 6, all fire sprinkler control valves shall be locked and open and electronically supervised. Number 7, the fire apparatus access road shall be provided around the facility with aerial access from one side. The design of the fire access road shall be in strict conformance with all 2020 Fire Code of New York State requirements. Number 8, all rated stair enclosures shall meet the requirements regarding roof access and doors as contained in the Uniform Code. All other stairwell issues will satisfy the Uniform Code. Number 9, a smoke control system design in accordance with NFPA 92-2 based on a reasonable expectation of fire scenario and a manual smoke and heat removal system shall be installed. The controls of either system shall be located in a dedicated room for the Town of Florida Fire Company, Amsterdam Fire Department use that is not a fire pump room. Number 10, a linear wired heat detection system for complete coverage on all floors shall be installed throughout the facility. Number 11, a smoke-proof enclosure for all stairs for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and 5th stories shall be provided pursuant to the sections 909.20, 1021.11, and 909.63 of the Uniform Code. Stair towers shall have a positive pressure system. Number 12, a fire alarm station display shall be located within the same room as a smoke control or manual smoke and heat removal system controls. This condition shall be satisfied only if the smoke control or a manual smoke and heat removal system is required by a local code official. Number 13, the fire command center shall be designed and construction in accordance with the Uniform Code, and the applicant shall coordinate with the Town of Florida Fire Company regarding the fire location of the fire command center, which shall be located within a room that has direct interior access and separate from the rest of the building, and equipped with a fire alarm workstation and visual displays. Number 14, a trained fire safety force, FSF, shall be provided with members on site at all times while the building is in operation and shall be trained from an entity accredited with the Fire Department of New York or equivalent. Number 15, a fire command center shall be staffed at all times with at least one FSF member with knowledge, skill, and abilities relating to fire protection, equipment, fire prevention, safety, and fire extinguisher systems. Shall have duties included but not limited to the following: A, locate and identify the fire area; B, provide fire suppression of incipient fires; C, perform fire watch over the areas when fire protection system is impaired or out of service for maintenance; D, maintain direct radio communication with the Town of Florida 911 system for incident coordination and responding fire personnel; and E, maintain a two-way radio communication with on-duty facility managers and coordinate the accountability of evacuation in the event of a evacuation or fire. Number 16, a fire safety plan shall be prepared by the owner and provided to the Town of Florida Fire Company for the facility. Fire safety plan shall be updated on an annual basis or sooner as components of the fire safety plan change. Such fire safety plans must be reviewed by the town and the Town of Florida Fire Company for the facility prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Number 17, the applicant shall assist the town of Florida Fire Company with preparing a fire department response plan. This response plan should include the town of Florida Fire Company with all floor plans. Such fire department response plan must be reviewed and approved by the town and the town of Florida Fire Company for the facility prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. For 18, any certificate of occupancy issued by the town for the facility shall provide that continued use and occupancy of the facility shall be conditional on continued compliance with all applicable provisions of the Uniform Code as verified by this decision. In addition to continued compliance with all conditions of this decision, any change of use of facility, including change from the single tenant group S1 occupancy described by the PBDA, may negate this variance or require additional protections. Number 19, battery storage and use shall be in strict compliance with NFPA 55, the Fire Code of New York State. Number 20, density of the FC liquid throughout the facility shall be limited on the elevated storage levels to 60 ounces of FC fluids in a single fabric pod, which amounts to 6.7 ounces of FC fluids per square foot and a maximum of 12,375 gallons on each floor based on the number of pods. Number 21, per the applicant's agreement, signage as developed for use for the NFPA 704 system for identification of hazardous materials will be applied to the exterior of the structure and locations as approved by the fire marshal. Number 22, a fire extinguisher location plan shall be included on the life safety plan submitted with the application for the building permit. Due to the anticipated dynamic location changes of the materials stored within the warehouse area, the fire extinguisher plan shall indicate travel distances as applicable to Class A or Class B materials. May I have a motion from the board? Jared Berenger.
Second it.
Jackie Kuhn, second. I'll poll the board members. Laura Ryder.
Aye.
Jackie Coons.
Aye.
Jared Berenger.
Aye.
Jeffrey Hindelater.
Aye.
And I, Chairman Andy Ellis, vote aye. Let the record show the votes, 5 ayes, 0 nays. Furthermore, this decision is limited to the specific building and application before it as contained within the petition and shall not be interpreted to give implied approval of any general plans or specifications presented in support of this application. Chairman Andy Ellis and board members Laura Ryder, Jackie Coons, Jeffrey Hindelater, and Jared Berenger all concur. So ordered.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your
Thank you for your patience. Any questions?
Yes. All right. The command center, termination, it said with direct interior.
That was a mistake.
It's
Oh,
right
I'm
in the
sorry. Did I-
exterior.
I'm sorry.
Exterior, I had-
My apologies. I read it wrong.
All good. I have more. NFPA 55 was noted. Did you mean NFPA 855 for lithium ion battery?
You wrote 55 on here.
I wasn't sure about the number.
Probably is.
Yeah, it's probably coming off the one here. Yeah, just awesome delivery though. That was.
Start over, read it again.
Yeah, it should have been 8:55.
Yeah. You guys.
Make that correction. NFPA 85. Thank you. Go off the record.